Chapter 22. She couldn't move. She should be dead, she had wished she could be for years upon years now, but she couldn't move and she wasn't dead either. Nor was she being tortured by being used against her will for the villain's side. Nana Shimura was unable to move her body in the slightest as she was strapped to a hospital bed, only the moon lighting up the room in the middle of the night. Her right arm strapped to a machine that was filtering her blood, her body contained more of Kurama's blood than her own at this point, and putting the filtered blood back into her body. Her left arm was attached to an 4-drip to replenish her and keep her body from aching with pain, since she was still injured as well. Toshinori has grown so much. How long has it been, since the day I lost to All for One? Nana thought to herself as she remembered that day. She lost to All for One in a pitiful way. She hadn't stood a ghost of a chance against the man at her full power. He had put her at death's door, and as she was dying, he didn't even deem her worthy enough to watch her die. He left her there, and when he left her, that was when Orochimaru came. He came to her, partially healed her enough to save her life, before he took over her body for himself. How long had she been in that hell that was Orochimaru's body? Unable to eat, sleep, forced to do nothing but feel his flesh wrapped around her body tightly, nearly never letting her body. No matter how much she wished to fight, his willpower easily overpowering her own. Unable to track how long time had passed, seeing Toshinori alone allowed her to see that years had passed. Seeing Recovery Girl in such an elderly state showed her that quite a bit of time had gone by. Where was All for One now? When would Orochimaru come back, and put her back in hell? Who was the villain who saved her? Why did a villain save her life? What had happened to her son in the years she had been away? She remembered giving her only son up for adoption, a foster family, once she had lost her beloved husband. She didn't want to put her son's life at stake, so she had made the hardest choice of her life in giving him up. Still, she had to worry about where he was now, if he was eating well, if he had a family of his own. There was so much that she wanted to know about everything that she had missed. She had spent so long in a living hell, not dead, but in no way would she call what she had been alive, and now, she could still freshly remember every second of what she went through. She wanted to throw up. Looking a little pale, their hero. "It's you." Nana could barely even whisper that out, the sedatives in her body keeping her weak. She was not in pain, but her mind had trouble coming up with words. There he was, Kurama, the villain that saved her. Since All Might is recovering from the hell of a beating you gave him. I mean Toshinori to you, I guess. Since you did a number on him, I'm making sure no white snakes sneak into this room tonight and take you away. Naruto greeted Nana with a sarcastic bow. He was happy she was awake, though she had taken a while to wake her ass up. It had already been 2 days since she had been admitted to the hospital. Top villain, Kurama, at your service, just letting you know, I'm completely open to giving you a sponge bath. Naruto allowed a small perverted joke to slip in his greeting. She barely had the strength to chuckle at his attempt to make her laugh. He wants dash. Okay, don't bother talking, that 4 is doing a number on your ability to speak. Naruto walked over to her and looked at her 4. A woman who should be the same age as Gran Torino, looking to be in her late 20s to early 30s, appearing in the same age that she was supposed to have died, was a miracle. The doctors were all over her case in an instant, so they were keeping her on a drip to keep her sedated while they figured out if anything was wrong with her body. This is going to hurt a bit. Naruto grabbed the 4 by the cord. She was a tough girl, she could take it as he ripped the 4 out of her arm, and while she bled a little, Naruto sucked his finger through his mask and pulled some saliva out. Her covered her blood with it, and the bleeding slowed down. His mucus could slow down or stop bleeding, Toad Quirk for the win. 5 minutes passed. 10 more minutes had passed. Naruto grabbed a magazine that was next to her bed, and sat down on a chair, putting his feet up on her bed next to her hips as another 20 minutes passed. With the 4 drip out of her body, and a total of close to 35 minutes passing, she could feel some of her strength returning to her. As her strength returned to her, so did her ability to feel pain as her stomach and head felt like it was being beaten on by a hammer. She opened her mouth and moved her jaw up and down to see how well she was able to do that. You're Kurama, the villain who saved me. Nana had a small bit of a slur to her voice, and messed up a little, but her speech had returned to her for the most part. She could barely move her body though, she was still far too weakened by her experience to do much. You gave me your blood? Nana could slightly remember him pulling the blood from her body, and replacing it with his own. Though, that could have been one of the vivid and painful visions that she had been having as she threw up and convulsed on the ground. I mean, I also gave you a super lethal dose of my poison. Naruto shrugged, not really caring that he saved a hero. What happened to her just irked him. Why? Nana's question was simple. I mean, I saw the snake in your clothes. It seemed to help control you, so I thought maybe you had parasite-like snakes inside of you. It was helping. At least, it smelled like you had way more snakes on you. Thing about parasites, they suck the good and bad from you. Figured my poison would get mostly sucked up by them. Naruto had based his actions on a guess mostly. She would have died either way if he had been wrong, or if he hadn't been able to save her. She could have still died if she didn't have a blood type that he was able to give blood to. It was dumb luck that saved her life. Her having AB blood and him having B-type blood meant that he had been able to save her life. Why did a villain save me? Nana asked a more specific question as she looked towards him, and he had no real outward shift in demeanor or anything to show he was uncomfortable. He wasn't wary of her question, or afraid of what could happen if she got her power back. She was a hero, he was a villain. Naturally, when she was strong enough to move, she would have to try and... No? I'm not going to do that. Nana whispered to herself before Naruto got the chance to answer her. He saved her life, Toshinori seemed to trust him, and Orochimaru was targeting him as he had done with her. She had to have faith in him. Even more than that, they had a common enemy and a common ally. Well, it's not like I plan on going out of my way to be a hero, but when I see a person in front of me who I can save, my body moves on its own. Anyway, don't go thinking I'm some hero or something. I'm going to use my quirk my way, the way I want to, and you heroes aren't going to stop me, so Naya. Naruto stuck his eyelid down at her. She could imagine him sticking his tongue out to add to it. Nana blinked as his words registered to her. His body moved on its own? In this world, exists a villain who has the heart of a hero, the makings of a great hero, but still chooses to remain a villain? Nana was confused, and it wasn't just her pounding headache talking. The best of heroes described themselves as acting before they knew what they were doing, their bodies moving on their own. She had taught Toshinori that was a trait of a great hero, and here, a villain had that trait. You're very weird, she said with a small grin coming over her face. I prefer Quirky. Naruto grinned under his mask. She stopped grinning. Orochimaru is after you, you stole me from him, he will be wary of your power, you should go into hiding. Nana gave him her honest advice. He had the most dangerous criminal after him, while she and her student might be able to defeat him if they teamed up. Once she was back to full strength, she doubted this villain could do the job. From her memories, she didn't remember him actually fighting against her when he defeated her. He knows that your poison can hurt him. He has snake's eyes everywhere. Nana told him as she looked around the room, looking for any trace of yellow eyes. Those eyes haunted her. Naruto shrugged. I'll face it head on dash. With a smile when he comes. Nana smiled when she realized he was going to say something similar to her own ideals. More like, I'll face it head on mocking the living shit out of him when he comes. Naruto preferred his way to hers, to be honest. Anyway, All Might? Toshinori views you really highly, called you master. Explanation? Naruto asked her with a knowing look. Since you saved my life dash. Okay then, I don't want to know. I didn't save you in order to save for any favors. You can either tell me because you want to, or don't. I really don't care that much either way. Naruto mentioned as he went back to reading the magazine. He wasn't going to let her spill some great secret because she felt like she owed him or anything. Trust me on this, once you're back in top shape, I'm going to take you down and steal your boots. Actually, I like your cape. I'll take your cape first. Naruto mentioned with a nod of his head. She looked at him curiously. I don't get what you're saying. Nana had to admit, villains these days sure seems weird. Top villain, Kurama, every hero who faces me gets defeated, and part of their costume stolen. I collect hero costumes as trophies, and then I return whatever it was I stole to make them chase me. I'm going to take your cape. Naruto told her as he eyed the cape that was hanging on the wall. Her entire hero costume was hanging up for her to change back into when she was ready. It had already been washed, but seeing it washed, he could totally see himself stealing her cape. Nana snorted, before she laughed a little. Wow, I wish villains in my day were like you. I might not even chase you. Having you as a top villain seems like it would be a great motivator for heroes to improve themselves. Nana could see why he was a top villain for sure with his skill. At the same time, she could see why he was the best choice for top villain. He didn't seem to have any hate for heroes or society. He was doing this because he liked it, and he really didn't have anything to gain from it. By talking with him, by having her life saved by him, she could tell he was a true hero at heart. He was very quirky, to put it in his words. I'm also taking your boots, just for that. I'm Toshinori's master. I have had 2 quirks, though I keep my real quirk secret. I inherited my quirk I use in battle from my own teacher, and I passed it on to Toshinori. My quirk was one for all. It allows the user to stockpile and use power, and then pass it on to the next user to improve it and add to it. I passed my quirk on to Toshinori, so that he could achieve his dreams. Nana felt a lot more at ease speaking honestly with this villain now. He seemed in the know about a few things, and he seemed willing to keep secrets. Not to mention the fact she genuinely got the feeling he was trustworthy by being around him. He had a unique aura, one that just made you believe in him. Cool, so that is his quirk, okay, a lot of things are adding up. Okay, cool, anyway I looked up some stuff about you. Nana Shimura broke into the record of families. Before All Might comes and gives you the bad news, I want to tell you this too, so you can cry and be able to show him a strong face. He needs you to be strong. Naruto had gotten a hold of her family records, not legally but as a villain that was fine by him. He had been curious about who she was and why Orochimaru wanted her, though her power was impressive. Nana looked at him silently, her face set in stone. They're all dead, aren't they? Nana had imagined her family would have been killed by All for One after he believed he killed her. She could see it in his nature to mess with somebody by killing their family. No, your grandchild awakened his quirk or something, and everyone died. The report stated there were no survivors, but it doesn't look like they suffered either. Will you be okay? Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow when he saw her face still set in stone. He was telling her this, because it was better for her to hear it from him than it would be for her to break down in front of a loved one. She didn't react at first, but she ended up nodding. That is better than what I thought. I made the right choice in giving my son away. Giving him away might have saved him from my enemies. He got to live a life, and have children of his own. I made the right choice. Nana's fist tried to tighten as she took some deep breaths. Naruto looked at her with narrowed eyes. She gave her son away, turned him into an orphan? You're a good mother for protecting your child. I'm sorry you had to do that. I've seen how hard it is for a parent to say goodbye. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sure your son loved you with all of his heart, even if he was confused. Naruto told her with a soft voice himself. She had tears leaking from her eyes, but in contrast to her tears, she was smiling wide. You're an orphan to heroes too, aren't you? Nana heard that tone, and she could tell he had experience with being an orphan. Her words had seemed to hit him way too close to home. His words were as good as her own son's words, since he spoke from experience. Naruto shook his head. My parents were killed the day I was born, but they weren't heroes in society's sense. My mom created an orphanage with my dad's help, to take care of children and find them homes. My parents weren't superheroes, but they were heroes. In this super society, children killing their parents by accident, children being orphaned because of heroes and villains, it happens a lot. Naruto leaned forward and put the magazine down. He looked at Nana, judging her reaction to his words. She smiled beautifully. Heroes save people's hearts, and your parents were doing good work. I bet they would be happy, knowing their son is so proud of them. I spent decades inside of Orochimaru, worrying about my child, but talking with you is putting me at ease. Nana was still crying, mourning for the loss of her child. She had spent the last, what felt like eternity, mourning for those losses. She had believed she would live forever inside of Orochimaru, inside of that living hell, meaning she would outlive all of them anyway. It felt relieving to talk with somebody who had a similar experience to her own child, telling her that he believed her child still loved her. Well, you're stressing me out. Heh, he. So, tell me about the world. How has it changed since I was really alive? Nana didn't consider any of the time she spent as part of Orochimaru as life. It was hell, and you weren't alive when you were there. She had, at most, a half-life while she was inside of him. The feelings of pain, breathing, smell, all of her senses were active again and she was free from the man who had her trapped. Is TV still black and white? Nana asked with a teasing smile. Naruto used his hand to wipe away her tears as he gave her the perfect deadpan. You're not that old. Still, it has to have been, at least 30 years since I've been gone. Nana didn't comment on the fact that, chronologically, she had to be in her 60s or 70s at this point. Her body might be the same age as when she was supposed to have died, but she had been kept in a hellish stasis. She asked partially because she really did want to know, and personally to take her mind off of the bad but needed information he gave her. How out of date is my phone, though I need a new one anyway, wait. I have no money, since I must have been pronounced dead. Nana started, before Naruto raised a hand up. He had been looking into that too. Your account is frozen, not dead. You had your wallet on your body when Orochimaru took you, so you kept it with you inside of him. Your ID is super out of date, and you're not legally a hero anymore. Naruto showed that he had her wallet as he took it from his pocket. She looked at her wallet in his hand, since that meant he stole her wallet while she was unconscious, though she couldn't find it in herself to feel angry at him for her. Your ID and hero ID have both expired a long time ago. You're not going to be able to do any hero work legally until you study up on new hero laws and take your tests again. Naruto informed her of that little thing with a grin on his face. She wasn't a hero right now, meaning she wasn't allowed to pick a fight with him to capture him, even if she wanted to. At the moment, Nana Shimura was no longer the hero she once was, literally. She was literally not a hero anymore, but instead a regular citizen of the country. She seemed surprised. That sounds reasonable. Nana was a little unsure of how to take the fact she wasn't a hero anymore. She didn't know all the new laws, or how long it would take for her to get caught up with the new rules and regulations, not to mention she would need to set up a new base for operations, get employees again. How long will this take until I can do hero work again? Nana had to worry about everything that could add up. It could take weeks, months, even years before she was back to being an active hero again. Anyway, I'm just going to do what I was doing before, don't mind me. I would disconnect you from the filter, but it seems the doctors just don't understand how my poison works. Naruto rolled his eyes at that. Seriously, his poison faded quickly when he wasn't using large doses, and he had given her his own blood, which had the only actual antibodies for the poison. But no, the doctors didn't realize this, and kept her strapped to a blood filter the entire time she was knocked out. Naruto started to read the magazine again. He even took her jello, given to her by the hospital, and took her spoon and started to eat it in front of her. Hey Dash. Hey nothing, you know that this wasn't packaged right, it was made in the kitchens. It has a quirk inhibitor in it, to make it harder for you to use your quirk. Since my quirk, mutation type, won't be affected, I'm doing you a favor. Naruto told her as he ate her snack. The doctors and everyone wanted to keep this woman as sedated as they possibly could. Even All Might have given a stamp of approval. They didn't know if she was truly outside of Orochimaru's control or not, and they didn't want to test that theory. The drugs would not hurt her in the slightest, none of them would, but keeping her sedated until Orochimaru was taken care of was viewed as needed right now. She was in a hospital with a lot of sick and dying people. If she was with Orochimaru still, she could go on a rampage. They're afraid I'm with him. Nana spoke lowly, bitterly. Let's see, in your fight with All Might, you destroyed several dozen city blocks, put All Might and dozens of pro-heroes you knocked out in the hospital. Makes sense why they want to keep you drugged up until they know you're not safe. You're actually lucky you weren't arrested as a villain. Only the fact you were mind-controlled saved your ass there. You're a hero, so they will realize you're safe soon enough. Naruto shrugged off her concerns and bitterness. Anybody would feel the way she felt, but what made her truly bitter was the fact she would have done the same thing to somebody else, but it was her on the receiving end of it this time. Nana looked at him suspiciously. And you're not scared? Naruto looked at her, and raised a hand. I put enough poison inside of you to kill a herd of elephants. Every single mind-controlling snake in you is super dead. You're only alive because those snakes were in you, and you were able to take my blood. Naruto explained to her just how lucky she was. Nana sighed in relief. That made her feel better, the fact that she could be sure of the knowledge she wasn't still on his side, even if she didn't know it. Also, the fact that if she turned evil again, she now knew of two people who could stop her. Kurama and Toshinori should both be able to stop her. Now that Orochimaru wasn't keeping the flames of one for all inside of her from shrinking anymore, she would grow weaker and weaker, until all she was left with was her original quirk. Oh thank Dash. Have no fear, for I dash. All Might, seriously, do you ever have an off switch for that? Naruto saw a large muscular form enter the room from the front, and surprisingly, he saw Deku was with All Might. Raising an eyebrow at that. It's Kurama. Deku didn't know he was here then. Thank you for watching her Kurama. All Might calmed down, but his eyes looked and saw Naruto eating the jello, and the four wasn't in her arm anymore. He frowned for a moment, and looked at Nana, seeing that she didn't seem to be making any sort of evil movement or gesture, he let it go. He trusted Naruto's judgment, seeing as it was Naruto's judgment that had saved his master's life to begin with. Naruto glanced at him with a raised eyebrow. This is your master. All Might's master. Deku gushed, extremely and visibly giddy to the point of nearly hopping in place. Hello, I'm Nana Shimura, and you must be. Nana looked at Deku, saw how well trained his body had been, but how it was a body that clearly showed signs of only recently become the way it was. His body had been forced into a fit state through intensive training, and he seemed to show a certain closeness to her student. The ninth holder of One for All? Nana asked as she looked at Toshinori with a raised eyebrow. All Might turned his head like lightning towards Naruto, the same with Deku, both of them realizing that him being in the room meant the secret had just been revealed. Naruto just raised his other eyebrow to match. One for all, I don't know what you mean, I'm just an ordinary dash. I told him. Nana stated as she looked at Naruto, who waved a hand at them. Sometimes, it was even funnier if you said nothing, and he had planned on letting them freak out for a while longer. He saved my life, and you trust him, don't you? Nana asked All Might, who looked at Deku as his pupil glanced at him with confusion. Trusting? A villain? I can see I'm not need here anymore, happy to work with you Toshinori. Naruto mockingly stated All Might's name as he held out his hand to the guy. All Might shook his head. All Might collapsed. Ahahaha. Naruto laughed as he jumped out of the open window, seeing as All Might had fallen for that one hook, line and sinker. Catch you on the flip side. Naruto shouted as he did a backflip to make his escape. A one-liner worthy of mocking All Might with. Later that night, the fun quickly wore off as Naruto had made his way back home, seeing as he had left while Namiri and Rumi were asleep, he had to get back before either of them woke up and realized he had gone. His hand that he had overused his poison with started to shake as the side effects started to show once more. While he had been around others, he had hid the shaking and shivering of his arm as he lost partial control over it. He already regained his full resistance back, but overusing his poison had left some temporary side effects that even he didn't realize he would suffer from. He had never gone overboard with his poison before, and couldn't have predicted the arm he used his full power, potent, poison with would be so greatly weakened. It was getting far better than it had been, but it was hard to hide how weakened the arm was. Naruto felt something poke his back. Hand over everything you got, if you don't want my knife or poison. You saw me on TV just a few days ago. I'm the great Kurama who can even taken down people as strong as All Might. A grown, little, man stated as he poked Naruto in the back with a knife. He was wearing a store-bought Kurama costume, he had yellow contacts in, and orange rings around his eyes that were done by makeup. He was close enough to Naruto in height to be passable at least, but his voice was way off. Looks-wise, other than the little bit of gut he was seeing under the jacket, this was a rather convincing fake. A fake Kurama was trying to mug the real Kurama. Hee-hee-ha, this is kind of funny. You know dash, Naruto turned around and grabbed the man's hand before he could blink, gripping his wrist hard enough that there was a loud cracking sound. The man shouted out in pain as he dropped the knife and almost fell to his knees, but Naruto raised his arm up to hold the back up onto his feet instead. Kurama doesn't actually use his knife to attack, he uses it to cut up hard to rip hero costumes. Not to mention, his first weapon is always the poison. If you were the real Kurama, you would have poisoned me first, and taken the wallet while I was down. Naruto lectured the would-be villain as he kicked his leg out from under him. He showed he had the knife in his other hand, having caught it before it hit the ground, and he looked at it, flipping it. Nice knife though. Let go. I'm sorry. Anyway, you did it all wrong. Naruto continued his lecture as he pushed the man onto his feet once more. A giant part of what Kurama a great villain, is the fact no matter what happens, he is always confident. His confidence is what causes heroes and people to think he always has a plan. Now, try again, but this time, do it better. Naruto gave the man the knife back, and the man was confused at first. Oh okay? The fake Kurama shifted and put a more confident look on his face, as he held the knife at Naruto's face. Better. Give me all your money, I'm mugging you. The fake Kurama shouted with a flair to his voice this time. How was that? The fake Kurama asked as he looked at Naruto curiously, and Naruto pulled out his wallet and opened it. Perfect, now what you want to do is take your money, and put it in here. Here, I'll hold the knife for you. Naruto held out a hand and kept his wallet in his other hand, in a completely natural way. The man nodded his hand and gave Naruto back the knife, before he got out his wallet that was stuffed with the money he took from others. He pulled out all of his money, and put it in Naruto's wallet. Okay, so what next? The fake Kurama asked as he looked at Naruto, wondering what the next mugging lesson would be. This was some good stuff he was learning. Naruto pointed the knife at his face. Good, now you realize that I just mugged you, without you even realizing it. Naruto told the man as he pointed the knife an inch away from his nose. The man's eyes widened in shock when he realized he had just given away all of the money he stole, and his only weapon. See, this is how Kurama would do it if he mugged somebody. Also, Kurama wouldn't mug people, so pick a different villain to impersonate. Naruto stated as he touched the tip of the knife to the man's nose as he tried to back away. You mugged me? Mug you? Naruto asked in false shock. I didn't mug you, I just stuck out my wallet and asked you very nicely to give me your knife and money. I never once threatened you with violence, or even had the weapon at that moment in time. I mean, if you really think I mugged you, you can take it up with a hero or the police. Naruto offered the man an alternative to their little problem, with a growing smile on his face. If the man even tried to go to the police, then the man would get arrested for being a criminal, while he would be praised for stopping a criminal. Sure, Naruto would have to give up the stolen money, but technically he didn't do anything wrong. Even now, while holding the knife at the man, he was just defending himself against the mugger. You! The mugger stopped himself, before he started to clap his hands together, both angry and impressed with what he had just had happened to him. You've given me a lot to think about. The mugger just ended it by turning around and walking away, since he had no moves left to pull. He had been outsmarted and outplayed at every turn, also he was pretty sure his wrist was starting to swell up after being cracked. Naruto just looked at the knife again. It is a really nice knife though. I'm going to keep it. Naruto put his wallet, now stuffed with money, into his pocket and put the knife away where it was hidden. Naruto hummed to himself as he started to walk on his way home, using the shadows as his friends to stay outside of patrolling police's eyesight. Since the curfew was in effect, he was in a tricky situation, so he needed to get home soon. Hello Naruto-kun. Nope. Naruto jumped full force when he heard that sickly sweet voice in the darkness around him. He didn't hold back as he got straight to the top of the building, and started to haul ass in the direction of home. With all of the criminals experiencing increased activity thanks to All Might being in the hospital, it made sense that his own personal villain was going to be way more active as well. I've got a sicko after my body, don't need her after my blood. Naruto chanted to himself as he made his amazing and strategic escape. He still hadn't created a strategy to overcome her ability to get around his spatial awareness trait. He was faster than her when he pushed his all into it, and when he wasn't trying to be in mocking villain mode. See you later then 3. He could practically hear the heart she spoke with in her voice, and the twisted affection she wanted to show him. He already had a dumb hero bunny after his ass, he didn't want a blood fetish villain to also join in on that party. She is still stalking me, if only I could use her. Naruto jumped backwards and undid most of the distance that he crossed, before he landed on the rooftop looking down at Himiko from. Hey, Himiko. Naruto stayed on guard as he looked down at the crazed lunatic. She seemed confused when she looked up and saw him staring down at her as well, but a wide and toothy smile came over her face, one that showed practically all of her teeth. Just want to ask you a question. I don't have enough blood in my body right now, but I've got something I need you to do, you do it, and you get 2 cups of blood. Naruto raised 2 fingers to show how much she was getting. Could her smile get any creepier? Yes. Oh, you know just what I want, you know me so well, we must be meant for each other. Himiko practically gushed as well. Why couldn't she just move on to somebody else already? Next day. Mirko and All Might Sensei both seem stressed out, though I guess Mirko doesn't really have a true teaching job, but it seems the rest of the teachers don't even know why they are so stressed. Momo thought as she walked through the hallways. Class is over for the day, and now students were just going to their club activities if they had them. Most hero students didn't, but the general class students all were required to have one at least. Kurama, aka Naruto, seemed to have knowledge on what was going on, since he had helped All Might, Mirko, and Midnight all take care of a hero-turned-villain, turned back to hero that had been in the news. The staff were all tight-lipped about who the Orochimaru that the woman talked about was in the news. Nobody in the news knew who it was either, and she had done her own research on the name. She looked all over the internet, but she couldn't find a single person that fit such a description that was living, and no registered villains with that name either. She wondered if this Orochimaru was related to the Yamada no Orochi who had strung up those 3 heroes in the mall. Those heroes were still all in the hospital from their severe injuries. Which club was Naruto in though? If she was right, then none of them, but if she was wrong then she would have to say her second guess would be the Go Home Club. So, basically the same thing, but she needed to ask his classmates just to be sure. Some of them should still be in the classroom, despite class being over for the day now. She felt Jiru bump past her in a hurry. Sorry Yamamo-Jiru used Mina's nickname for her, as Mina followed behind her as well. The 2 of them looked excited for something. Jiru was holding a t-shirt in her hands, while Mina was holding both a t-shirt and hot pants. Both of them were holding Kurama merch though. Kurama is going towards the teacher's lounge to meet with All Might. Since he's not doing villainy today, everyone is getting their Kurama stuff signed. Jiru kept talking as she quickly got further and further away from Momo. Momo's eye twitched. Momo sighed and walked after them, before she was elbowed in the ribs when a bunch of students who had heard what Jiru said started to rush past her at high speeds. Kurama was becoming increasingly popular with teenagers in general, and after he had cemented himself as not just a villain, but somebody who had saved All Might, being his fan was no longer something you needed to keep hidden from the public. Ow, ow. OW, that last one was my foot. Momo hopped on her foot when somebody stomped on her foot when passing her. Rude. Suck it, heroes, top villain Kurama has stolen the hearts of the next generation. Yep, that was him all right. Momo saw Naruto in his Kurama outside walking through the hallway with a ton of students constantly approaching him and getting his signature on things. She watched as Jiraiya gave Naruto her "I'm a top villain" t-shirt signed, and smiled brightly when she looked at it. Mina was less restricted though, and had a shirt, hot pants, and she even opened up her school uniform enough to have her cleavage signed. Her nipples were not showing, she kept her cleavage modest enough. Momo watched Mina and Jiraiya high-five as they started to walk away. Then there was Naruto getting a signature from. Momo's eyes tracked Naruto Uzumaki getting his shirt signed by Kurama, and she looked and saw that this wasn't a simple Kurama fake either. This Kurama had the exact same build, facial structure, though with a mask, as the Naruto in front of him. Students were recording the signing with their phones, and some were posting it online. How? Momo had to ask as she looked at Naruto and Kurama standing in the same place, at the same time, and being recorded together. Neither of them looked fake in the slightest. Kurama had the same happy villain aura about him, and that was clearly Naruto. He confirmed he was Kurama. How in the world is he doing this? Momo had to question this, but not her own beliefs. She already knew Naruto and Kurama were the same person, it was confirmed for her, but she couldn't figure out how Naruto was in the same room as a real Kurama at the same time. Shit. Naruto and Kurama being seen together meant that now her need to convince anyone that Naruto was Kurama had just become so much harder for her. There was now evidence, extremely good evidence, that Naruto and Kurama were not the same person. Kurama's quirk was known to be poison, while Naruto had his quirk registered as Toad in the quirk registry. Neither of those quirks had cloning abilities, meaning that them standing together and that recording being on the internet was proof they were not the same person. Thanks, Kurama. Naruto stated as he grinned wide at Kurama. Not a problem. Kurama stated back with the same voice, and a matching grin on his face under the mask. You know, this really does prove they aren't the same person. Though, the resemblance between them is uncanny. They almost perfectly match, they even have the same voices. Still, it makes me feel bad for suspecting Naruto. Tsuyu walked up next to Momo and spoke with a tone that made her words hold her meaning. It was audible, her regret over suspecting an innocent man. Momo watched Naruto start to walk away from Kurama. He glanced back at her, and he grinned. She followed him. In the gym storage building. Momo walked into the storage building after Naruto, and she glanced back at it, and she locked the door behind her, since she figured that Naruto wanted her to lock it. He walked into this room by himself, knowing she was following him. He grinned at her, and he sat down on top of a stack of mats. Naruto, how did you do it? I know for a fact you're Kurama, also this is unfair of you. I thought we were going to keep this fair. Momo crossed her arms and puffed out her cheeks. Naruto was treating this as a game between them, so he was supposed to keep it fair for her. Now her side of the game had just become nearly impossible. Naruto blinked. He grinned wider. What can I say? I'm a villain, and you're so amazing, that I am making the game fair. If you could figure me out, then naturally you're smart enough to find out a way to even the playing field, unless you think you can't do it? Naruto taunted her with a little question. Her cheeks puffed out more, but they became pinker when she realized the compliments that were in his teasing. Naruto took his phone out, and he glanced down at it. She saw him open up some app. Naruto looked at a picture of Momo for a second, a picture of her with a highly sexual face. Momo Yaoyorozu. Well, if you put it that way. I guess a hero does need to overcome challenges. Momo rationalized, not questioning the fact he didn't answer her initial question either. She soon realized that she was locked in the storage building with him, and she glanced at him. You know, I'm not opposed to us. Momo shyly spoke, unable to make eye contact with Naruto as she chose her words very carefully. What is what? You've got to speak up. Naruto asked her with a teasing grin. Momo turned beet red. Can we continue? What do you want, Momo? Naruto asked with a slightly sadistic gleam in his eye. He got up and walked towards her, and Momo couldn't help but feel like each step he took was similar to that of a predator stalking its prey. She glanced away. The second she so much as glanced away, Naruto was right in front of her, and her hands were both pushed up above her head. Naruto was using a single hand to hold her arms up, and his other hand was firmly placed on her hip. He pressed his forehead against her own, gently pushing even the back of her head up against the door. This was so much like that time. I want, continue, sex. Well, she is super pretty. Naruto thought as he looked up and down her body. His face gained a grin that nearly split his face, before he wasted not a second more. He locked lips with Momo, and his hand went down from her hip, and it traveled underneath her skirt. She was already moist. Didn't matter though. I'm ready. You're not ready, until I have you begging. I want to see your face twist in pleasure. Only when you're begging from the bottom of your heart and soul, desperately wishing for me to fulfill your body's perverted desires, will I fill them. Naruto stated as his fingers got a hold of her panties, and pulled them down so that they were halfway down her thighs. His hand went back up, but he didn't let even a single finger penetrate her, as all he did was gently rub and spread her crotch as her privates became more puffed in arousal. She shivered, and twisted. She came with a whimper, her eyes scrunching up and lips tightening as she released onto his hand. Please dash. He just continued to tease her, practically knowing every spot that needed to be pleased, as if he had personal experience in the matter. His fingers alone were masterfully pleasing her without so much as one finger going inside of her. Momo whimpered with her face going more red as a finger was finally added to the inside of her body. Oh, what is this? Somebody is a virgin. Naruto teased her as he pushed up against something inside of her. Let's just take that little barrier out. Naruto used his middle finger, and like magic, Momo winced as a small amount of pain was added to the pleasure she was feeling. It felt like something tore inside of her. Naruto's hand had some of her blood on it, and she knew what had happened, while Naruto looked at the blood on his hand with an intense stare. His smile widened, his brain registered the blood. In the teacher's lounge. I don't know how I feel about a second villain on school grounds. All Might spoke with a deep frown, highly uncomfortable as he looked at Naruto as he took his mask off his face. Naruto's plan to have another villain shapeshift into him, so that there could be video proof of the two of them in one place, went against what he wanted. Still, he had agreed to the condition of the orphanage being protected. Naruto needed to be seen with Kurama, so that the orphanage would not be used against Kurama by somebody who figured out his identity. Orochimaru would no doubt use the orphanage against Naruto, so having internet evidence that Naruto and Kurama were separate people helped to fulfill his end of the deal in protecting the orphanage. I'm the one who is sacrificing his blood for this, anyway. I told Himiko if she wanted my blood, she wasn't going to kill, maim, or use any weapons at the school. Naruto had made sure that when he gave Himiko enough blood to transform into him for the day, that she wouldn't have any weapons or anything on her. She was wearing his school uniform so that she would not be naked when she turned back to normal, but he had already sacrificed blood, and made the promise to sacrifice more blood. Himiko is a lesser villain, Orochimaru is a giant threat. You can always go after her when Orochimaru is captured. If you want me to keep helping though, Himiko goes free for now. Naruto hated saying that a lot. He hated the fact he was working with her, but he needed her ability to ensure the safety of the children who could be used against him. When he and the best heroes fought Orochimaru, he couldn't afford to have anything that could be used against him. She could ruin your reputation though. Mirko commented, since even though she hated letting a villain go, she could at least see that she had no romantic competition in this girl. Naruto seemed disgusted by her and her blood-sucking ways. Aren't you afraid of that? Mirko questioned him, and he shrugged. I put a list of people on my phone that she can talk to with any form of intimacy, so she can't go getting all buddy-buddy with anyone. She is a really good actor, so I doubt that she is going to be doing anything that will ruin my reputation. Naruto explained, before he leaned forward and got more serious. Ignoring Himiko, we need to talk about how we are going to stop Orochimaru. Heroes have stopped disappearing. I think Orochimaru is done preparing, and he is going to show up himself next time. I don't know where or when, but after I freed Nana, I know he realized it was too risky to send anyone but himself personally. Naruto looked at All Might for confirmation. All Might nodded. Orochimaru is powerful, but what is scary about him isn't his power. If it was just a matter of fighting strength, he could be beaten. What is truly scary is how he has the experience of hundreds of heroes. He has the knowledge of almost every fighting style in the world, and we only know one way that might kill him. All Might was talking about Naruto's poison. They had defeated Orochimaru before, but they weren't capable of killing him at the time. Now they had a method to kill him, but Orochimaru was also more powerful than before. Even All for One feared Orochimaru's knowledge. Orochimaru was a man with no morals, who didn't fight for good or evil for the sake of either. He fought and stole for the sake of expanding his knowledge on quirks. The last time they defeated Orochimaru, All for One had helped them indirectly by sending them knowledge about a way to keep Orochimaru weakened during the fight. All for One would never help them directly, since he would not put his own quirk at risk. All for One could steal quirks. Orochimaru could steal quirks, though in a different way. All for One would not put his body at risk against an opponent that could potentially steal his body, and all of his quirks. All for One never went into battle unless he was 100% sure that he was going to be the winner of the fight, or unless he had no choice. Orochimaru was a man with the knowledge of 1,000 men, so almost any fighter was useless against him, because Orochimaru had the knowledge on every fighting style. So, fight the bad guy, don't let him capture you, and Naruto deals the finishing blow. Sounds like we have our plan all set out then. Mirko liked to keep the plan simple. They fought, they killed the villain, they win. This was a villain that had to be killed, not beaten and sent back to jail, but flat out killed this time. We only get a single shot though, the amount of poison I need to make to do this will be my limit. Naruto explained with a wince. He would suffer from severe poisoning if he were to have to try to poison Orochimaru a second time. I've got a really bad feeling about this. Naruto thought to himself with a deeper frown. Naruto glanced at All Might. Naruto, I've got a request for you. All Might looked at Naruto, interrupting Naruto before he even got the chance to open his mouth. And I know this is asking a lot considering how much you've already done for me. My master, can you hide her away from Orochimaru? I've told the hospital that I've got a friend coming to take her to a place to keep her safe. Can I bother you one more time? All Might asked Naruto with his hands placed tightly together. Mirko stayed out of this. Naruto shrugged. I'll see what I can do, but I'm not going to promise much. Naruto's words were enough to comfort All Might at least. He did have an idea though. With fake Naruto. Delicious, just, beautiful. Himiko thought, borrowing Naruto's body, as she was on her knees in front of Momo's crotch, viewing the blood as she licked her lips, a small amount of blood on them. Most of the blood had been licked off while she had been giving Momo oral, the girl far too distracted to notice what was going on below her waist, other than the pleasure that had her nearly collapsing on the ground. Momo was in a daze. She had come close to 6 times already, with Naruto using nothing more than fingers and his tongue. She was breathing deeply, unsure if she would be able to so much as stand by the time any of this was done and over with. Every time she could feel her body calming down and her hormones losing some of their intensity, she was teased again and brought back into the horny state that she had started out in. It was like Naruto had intimate knowledge on a girl's body, and knew exactly what needed to be done to bring it to ultimate arousal. Still, a small part of her mind noticed that Naruto's skill in turning her on seemed a little weaker than the last time. Sure, it was like he had intimate knowledge on her privates only a girl should know, but at the same time, before Naruto had been able to arouse her with little more than words. Now, he was needing to use his body to keep her in an aroused state. I like you a lot, you're so beautiful Momo. Himiko stated with Naruto's face and voice. A small little bell went off in Momo's head, but despite something seeming wrong about something in that sentence, she couldn't pinpoint what it was. She was out of breath from coming so much, and her brain wasn't working at top condition thanks to her arousal. Stupid teenage hormones. Please, please. I'm begging you, make it end. Momo literally begged for it. She wanted this arousal over, and she wanted to take this to the next level. When Naruto had left her hanging the last time, that night and every night since, her brain kept imagining what it would have been like for her if he had actually continued. Yet, the dreams never finished showing her what her brain couldn't quite imagine. Wait. Momo. I want you to beg Mo more? Himiko looked at Momo's legs go steady, and though she was still extremely aroused, suddenly her face started grow angrier. You're not Naruto. Himiko raised an eyebrow, and she was about to dive back into Momo's crotch, but a hand blocked her by pressing into her forehead. Of course I am. Himiko stated in an extremely convincing tone. She had all of Naruto's mannerisms down pat. She tried to move back towards her prize, but Momo's hand stayed firm, and Momo used her quirk. She didn't drop character for a moment, though she was a little curious. What was giving her away? Naruto doesn't call me Momo in private. He calls me by the nickname he gave me, and you haven't called me my nickname even once. Momo created a taser with her quirk, and she pointed it at Himiko. So, who are you? Momo stated as she used her other hand to pull her panties back up as Himiko backed away from the taser. Without a weapon, she didn't really have much ability in a fight, and Momo was refusing to take her eyes off of her for even a second. She couldn't use the trick that she used to sneak up on Naruto if her opponent never took their eyes off of her. Momo wasn't even blinking as she stared down the girl. Well, I guess that look over there. Himiko shouted in a true Naruto fashion as she pointed to the wall, but her voice changed back to her normal voice. Transformation was about to run out anyway. Momo looked. Crap. Momo looked back where the imposter was, but she saw the window was open and the imposter had escaped. She frowned to herself, before she shivered when she felt just how wet her panties were as they touched her crotch once more. Only magnified by how soaked her crotch was anyway, meaning that unless she wanted the school to think she was a perverted girl, she needed to stay put until both of them dried out. She was still aroused, but thankfully, she had snapped out of the drunken state before they had gone any further than what they did. Judging by the voice change at the end, the person who had impersonated Naruto was a girl, but she had managed to perfectly replicate his body and voice so well. The only thing that clued her in was the fact that the fake Naruto had never once called her Muffin Top. Who knew that nickname would help her so much? Naruto calling her Muffin Top in private had been what alerted her to the fact that Naruto was an imposter, and it allowed her to figure out how Naruto and Kurama had been in the same place at the same time. With Himiko. I've got Naruto's clothes, and I got to find a super pretty girl, and I even got to drink her blood. Himiko in her natural form, though wearing Naruto's clothes still, skipped along the sidewalk with a happy smile on her face. She had a blush on her face, since not only was she going to get more blood from Naruto, but she had gained something else. Another love. She still loved Naruto, but now she had found a super pretty girl that she was in love with too. She had almost managed to have sex with the girl as Naruto, but sadly she didn't know that Naruto used a nickname for the girl. She had been super excited to be able to experience pleasure in Naruto's body, but her time just wouldn't allow that to happen. Now she just needed to find a way to capture both Naruto and Momo, that way she could have a perfect little bloody threesome with both of her loves. I love Naruto-chan, and I love Momo-chan. I got to drink so much blood today, and I found another person I'm in love with, such a wonderful day. Himiko skipped with even more happiness as she realized just how great her day had been. She couldn't wait until she got her payment, once Naruto had enough blood to give her for her work. She wanted to be him again. Chapter 23. Finding Orochimaru. It had to be done, as much as everyone wanted to put it off, they knew it was completely needed for them to track down where Orochimaru was going to be first. If they allowed Orochimaru to find them, then that meant they were already going to be playing by his rules. Even if they couldn't find him, they had to try something to at least drag him out. I don't like this. All Might spoke, outside of his muscle form but wearing a different outfit than what he usually did. He had on a villain outfit, which was still too large for his body. He had a bandana, purple, covering his hair and going over most of his eyes. His torso was wrapped up in bandages and he was wearing a bulletproof vest, as well as baggy black pants. He didn't like not being able to go into his muscle form, something Naruto had forbid him from doing. I hate this, all this sneaking around, and for what? Mirko on the other hand was wearing a tall black top hat that she had her ears tucked into, and she had a red bandana on under it and pulled down enough to cover the remainder of her ears. She had on a black tuxedo jacket, but underneath it she was wearing a bunny girl outfit with thigh-high boots. She looked like she belonged in a magic act, though the fact she was wearing shades at night lowered her vision a little bit. Also, he looks like a mummy, and I look like a Playboy bunny had a child with a magician. All Might, your villain name is Mighty Mummy, and Mirko, you are Meiho Usagi. Naruto reminded them of their villain names, since they were in disguise. He was taking them to a place that heroes were not supposed to go, or rather, a place that was not a location heroes knew about. He had known about this place even before he became an official villain. He hadn't gone back since he had made his debut, so it had been months and months, but he still knew the way like the back of his hand. Of course, neither of them knew where he was taking them at all. I don't like where we are either. All Might mentioned with a deeper frown. They were at Kabukicho. They were in a Tokyo red light district. Red light districts were places where there were a large concentration of sex shops, strip clubs, and other sex-oriented businesses were. Even with the curfew in place, this was a place where there were still people legally outside. Prostitution was legal, but regulated. In areas like this, at least, the government knew about it and never made any real attempts to put a stop to it. Kabukicho had more level hotels and other such places with lower population density. Why do you know about this place? Mirko asked Naruto with a small hitch to her voice. He was in full Kurama gear. I figured I could make some money for the orphanage, to let the kids eat better if I took some days off of school. I can pass for legal if I mask some of my features. I didn't get any work. Naruto quickly stated when he saw both of them look at him in surprise and horror when they realized a teenage boy tried to sell himself. Before I could even try, I found somebody who taught me about being a villain. If anyone can help us find Orochimaru, it is this guy. Naruto explained to them as he continued walking. Hey Kurama honey, what say you and I make some sweet, oh so sweet, love together tonight? A woman with honey dripping off of her body spoke, using her quirk to create honey instead of sweat. Naruto just smiled. Mirko stepped in front of Naruto and growled at the woman, with All Might putting a protective hand in front of Naruto, both of them trying to shield his eyes and body from the woman. They didn't seem to realize the woman wasn't serious in her efforts, and was just trying to make conversation with them. Mighty Mummy, Meho Usagi, Hakuna your tatas. This is Amai, this is just how she acts. She's kidding, she has a different type of client she goes for. Don't mind these two, they are new villains. Naruto pushed the two out of the way. Mighty Mummy, Meho Usagi, this is Amai, she used to be the villain Sweet Tits. Naruto introduced them properly to each other. Sweet Tits, never heard of her. All Might and Mirko spoke in unison. They never heard of any named villain like this. Before I became a prostitute, I did a few very small crimes. I got caught really quickly, put in jail by All Might. When I got out of jail, I decided to do something different. I'm not an active villain anymore. Amai spoke, and Mirko looked at All Might, who was still shrugging his shoulders. She didn't comment out loud though, since she didn't want to give them away. Did everyone expect him to remember every since villain he captured? He captured a ton of villains over the course of his career. It wasn't like he was going to remember everyone but the more challenging or the bigger names. If she was being truthful, then she was just another small name villain that got captured. Not to mention, if she did her jail time, and hasn't committed a crime since, then he would have no reason to really keep an eye on her either. Nope, still doesn't ring a bell. All Might thought as he shifted uncomfortably. Did he make a woman turn to prostitution? How many villains' lives had he ruined, because he had captured them and made them unable to get normal jobs? Seeing a prostitute had sent to jail as a villain, was a little shocking for him. He looked at Mirko, and saw that she was shifting very uncomfortably as well. No doubt she was realizing that for a villain, life after jail was no easier than life before it was. How many lives had they done irreparable harm to, because they had revealed their true identities to the entire world? You haven't been around here in months though, not since you became a big name as a villain. Tell you what. Because I miss you, I can put in a good word in for you with some of the new girls, maybe get you a reduced price. Then again, what girl here wouldn't be happy to be the dick sleeve dash? All Might and Mirko seemed even more uncomfortable hearing such a pretty young woman, in her 20s, speak like that. Of the great Kurama. Anyway, you aren't here for pleasure I take it? Amai asked as she started to realize something. Kurama brought new villains with him. He had never done that before, so obviously, he had some kind of business that was really important. I should bring up ideas for villain aftercare, to help villains who did their time find proper work. All Might thought as he looked at Amai. All Might must feel horrible dash. All Might started, before he was punched in his weak spot by Naruto and Mirko both. He wasn't supposed to talk much, because he would'll reveal himself if he did. Is he in? Naruto asked with crossed arms, his tone more serious. Amai looked at All Might with a tilted head, since he seemed a little familiar to her, his voice did at least. When that Yamada no Orochi villain left that message at the mall, he came back, he's in his usual spot. Amai gained a slightly displeased look on her face. Like she had smelled something extremely bad, but she forced a smile on her face anyway. It was a completely contradictory look that she wore. I wouldn't spend too much time with him, you shouldn't let that villain's personality get to you. Amai knew the irony that she was telling this to another villain. Kurama was young though, and he was way older. Mirko and All Might were on alert at the mention that they were meeting some really bad villain, a villain that rushed back to this location when Orochimaru had been revealed in the news. That meant it was a villain that had knowledge on the man, which meant an older villain, a sneaky one that managed not to get caught. Naruto nodded. Come on rookies, see you later Sweet Tits. Naruto waved to the woman as he gestured for the two pro-heroes to follow him. Mighty Mummy, Meho Usagi, we're going. Naruto told them more audibly when they followed him slightly slowly. They seemed a little shocked by the entire thing they witnessed. Naruto looked at the various shops, before he nodded to one of them. He knocked on the door to a bar, and a hole opened up in the door, showing a large red eye that was gazing at the three of them. The eye was close to 7 times the size of a normal human eye, and it glowed as it turned to each of them. Password. Naruto reached into his pocket, and pulled out a pair of panties, white panties with strawberries on them. He opened up the inside of them, and he showed the eye the password inside of them without revealing the password to Mirko or All Might. They were heroes, and though they knew the location of the bar, they were not going to learn the password. As heroes, he could not trust them with the knowledge on the password. Panties? All Might questioned a little, looking at Mirko, and she just shrugged her shoulders in response. Naruto shoved the panties through the hole in the door, and he nodded his head silently. A different set of panties came out of the hole in the door. This pair of panties was a black, frilly thong that barely had any cloth to it at all. What is going on exactly? All Might asked Mirko again, and she shook her head. She had no clue what the hell was going on. The door opened revealing a tall man, but super skinny, with an abnormally large head, and only a single eye in the middle of it. His quirk being a mutation type that made him into something of a cyclops. For a skinny man, he had a long and jagged scar on his arm, going from shoulder to wrist. Accepted, and welcome back Kurama. Never thought you would bring in rookies, you were always above working as a team. The man moved aside and allowed them to walk in. They walked in, with Naruto leading the way. What was the deal with the panties? All Might questioned Naruto when he put them in his pocket, and patted it down to make sure they were in there well. All Might looked, and his eyes widened as he tensed up. The bar was filled with close to 23 known villains, all of which were in their villain costumes and were hanging around the bar like it was nothing. Some were playing pool, and others were getting drunk and watching TV. Behind the bar, there were very attractive women dancing, something that got a bit of a blush from All Might. Mirko just looked at Naruto, while she gripped her fists up tightly, since she wanted to pick a fight. You too, this goes double for you Meiho Usagi, do not pick fights dash. You fucker. You moved the table, and made me miss my shot. A tall and muscular villain shouted to a small, petite woman as she leaned against the table. He snapped his stick out of anger, while she whistled, pretending not to know what she had just done. Electricity started to spark out of his hands. He slapped the woman across the face, sending her flying with sparks coming out of her body, before she landed on the ground in front of them. You won't mess with my next shot, or you'll get worse than that, oh shit. The villain cursed when he saw the woman get back up, and rub her cheek. He had hoped that knocked her out. She pointed a finger at him, before she shot a laser at him that got him dead center of the chest. The tips of her fingers all having machine-like holes in them, a twinkling laser knocking him into the air. He slammed into the wall with a massive burn mark on his chest, while the woman flipped her hair and huffed. Teach you to hit me, what if you had knocked one of my teeth out? The woman asked as one of the servers rushed out from behind the bar with a mirror. She placed it in front of the man's face, right in front of his mouth. Dead? Who had money on Raikiri biting the dust? Naruto raised his hand, getting both All Might and Mirko to send him shocked looks. Real bad temper, figured he would get himself killed by somebody. You okay there finger bang? Naruto asked the petite woman, who opened her mouth wide and Naruto looked into her mouth for her. The back row of her teeth, not the front teeth, were all mechanical looking in nature and had glowing red balls in them. Teeth looking good, no damage. Her quirk is burning shot. Her back teeth are heat generators that are connected to her fingers, and her fingers can build the heat up before releasing them as beams. Naruto explained to the heroes. Finger Bang nodded. Who are these two? She asked, and the bar patrons were all discreetly looking them, as a large amount of money was brought towards Naruto. Naruto took it and put it all in his backpack, ignoring the look All Might sent him for it. This is Mighty Mummy, his quirk gives him the appearance of a mummy, not the bandages though. He's just got a real Skeletor appearance to him, real skin and bones. Naruto explained, while All Might took a little offense to how Naruto described his true form. It was not his fault he was mostly skin and bones, though he had muscle to him too. Mirko held back a laugh, before it was her turn. This is Meiho Usagi, and her quirk is Muscle Bunny, she can trade her IQ for muscle power, real dumbass. Naruto made sure to insult both of them equally. Hey! Ahahahaha! Finger Bang laughed loudly, and the entire bar laughed with her. Gonna kill him when I'm done fucking him. Mirko's eyes twitched when the entire bar laughed at her. Oh who, the conquering hero? I mean the menacing villain returns, what brings the likes of you, hic, seeing, zzzzzzz. A man at the bar shouted at Naruto, before he slipped into a drunken sleep. Naruto walked up to the bar, pulling both of the heroes behind him by their hands, before he made them sit down. A large man, large as in fat, came up behind Naruto. Hey Kurama, rumor has it you've been getting pretty chummy with the heroes, worked together with them to take down one of their own, you're not going hero on us? Naruto grabbed the back of the man's head, before he slammed his face into the bar, shattering a may of beer on the man's face. The act of violence surprised everyone involved, other than the villains in the room of course. Naruto kicked the man's legs out from under him, and his chin slammed into the bar a second time. He had glass shards stuck in his face, so Naruto kicked him in the stomach to finish it off. OSHIT. Mirko felt the heat between her legs when she saw Naruto take down a large man, not with poison, but with physical strength and violence. She always forgot this, but Naruto did have enhanced strength thanks to his quirk as well. Well, she didn't learn it until recently, but he had enhanced strength thanks to the toad quirk. He didn't have the strength of a strength quirk, but his power was nothing to scoff at either. 1 second he makes me want to beat him up, and the next I want to beat his meat. Mirko couldn't help but curse her love for violence. Naruto raised his hands up. Does anyone else want to ask me that? How about you, Rocky Road, you think I'm going hero? Naruto asked the fat man as he started to get back up. The glass in his face starting to shatter as his skin gained the texture of a boulder. He grumbled and limped away, back towards the TV that was playing, humiliated. I want a toad whiskey. Fire whiskey. Naruto stated as he tapped the table in front of him. The server girl seemed shocked, before she nodded her head. Gamabunta isn't here, but he is here. He is at his usual place. She told Naruto, who groaned and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Of course. Tracking that bastard down, it would be easier just to let Orochimaru come to me. You two stay here, you two better come with me. Naruto could see All Might was extremely uncomfortable, and Mirko was now starting to itch to start a bar fight. Considering they were surrounded by villains, not a big deal for a villain, but horrible for heroes, it was best for them to leave quickly. Okay, 5 rounds for everyone, on Gamabunta's tab. Naruto called out to the entire bar. The bar cheered out, while Naruto just smirked when he saw some of the server girls smirking as well. He and this Gamabunta must have an extremely stressed relationship. All Might thought as he followed after Naruto. Naruto put the panties in his pocket into a basket that was filled with them. Naruto didn't grab the panties that he came in with, instead Mirko saw that they were also in the basket as well. They left the bar. So, the story with the panties? Mirko asked as she looked back at the closed door behind them. That bar is his most visited bar, because the server girls are all pretty easy sluts. He has a lot of money, so he has them eating out of his pocket. He's got connections all over the sluttiest parts of Japan. He was recently whoring it up on a world tour of all the most perverted places this world has to offer. That bar is a bar you can only enter by writing the password on a used pair of panties, and accepting the pair they give you. You can't leave the bar without a pair of panties, and you can only have a single pair on you. Naruto explained as he put his hands in his pockets and grumbled. He didn't like the way that bar worked, but he was used to it at least. This was the red light district for a reason. It was so filled with the sex industry that he always felt like he should get himself checked out for STDs when he was done visiting. Back already? Amai asked as they passed by with a tilt of her head. He's at his other usual place. Naruto and company passed by Amai again as they walked down the streets once more. But the panties they gave you, you put them in the basket dash. Naruto pulled a pair of panties out of his pocket, a frilly G-string in lime green, and he swung it around his finger. I've met your master, but you're going to meet my master. One of the first lessons he taught me is how to steal things without a person even realizing you stole them. I stole Finger Bang's panties, and they counted as pair I needed to use to leave. Naruto put them back into his pocket. Mirko seemed surprised for a moment and she pat down her hip, making sure that her own panties were under her clothes. They were there, thankfully. You had, but we were standing right there next to you. How did you take off her panties without her noticing? How did you do it when she was standing up? All Might questioned with burning red cheeks. This entire place was getting to him. Diversion, plus I have more than just one poison. I can make any poison that any toad can make, including numbing a person's sense of feeling. With a simple distracting move, nobody ever notices as I poison them, remove their ability to feel their body, and steal their underwear. It all happens in a quick second. A split moment of feeling dizzy, where they don't notice the world around them. Naruto explained as he lifted his up hand again, and he showed Mirko's panties and All Might's underwear. He tossed the heroes back their undies, showing that he had gotten them while they were talking. What? Mirko pat down her hip again, and found that her panties weren't even there. Naruto had been right, she had felt a little dizzy, like she was going to sneeze or something, for a brief moment and lost feeling in her body. It had happened so quick that she didn't even notice it, her vision just went white like she was lightheaded, and then boom, everything was normal again. Why would he teach you that skill dash? Location change, Villainous Delights Massage and Hot Springs. Ufo, yes, take it all off. An elderly man spoke as he looked through a crack in the hot springs walls, looking at the women who were taking their towels off within. Back with Naruto? This man is perhaps the world's most perverse man. Naruto explained with a groan as he looked at the front of the massage and hot springs building. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, knowing that he should have come here first. His master was a man of many interests, almost all of them perverted. He became a villain, purely so that he could use his quirk to be as perverted as he wants. He uses the women he spies on as models for his books. Naruto didn't go into the building. He started to walk around it. Wait, the entrance is right. All Might started to walk towards the entrance. Mirko's eyes widened when she realized what was going on before the pure-hearted All Might, who believed in giving others the benefit of the doubt. She realized what a pervert would be doing behind the hot springs part of the building. She crossed her arms super tightly, so that she didn't attack anyone. She was going to want to. They walked around the edge, and they saw a very tall elderly man with super long white hair, spiked as well. He had red lines going down his cheeks, and he wore a Yakuza outfit that was combined with kabuki clothes. Yufufu, boy have you grown, the bushy look fits so well with that motherly figure. I can't wait to see what your daughter looks like when she is your age. The elderly man spoke as he started to doodle the woman's looks down on his notepad. Mirko wanted to shove her foot through the back of his head, and punt him over the wall, but she refrained herself from it. Pervy master, let's talk for a minute. Naruto had no issues with saying as he kicked the man's face into the wall. Ow. Brat. I haven't seen you in months, and you greet me with a kick to the head, your master is ashamed of you. The man turned around with a shout. Women's faces started to peek over the walls and look down at all of them. All Might covered his eyes when more of their bodies were revealed, the women not bothering to hide anything in the slightest. Oh, Kurama, want to jump in? The water is fine? We have plenty of room for you in here. Mirko turned to look at Naruto as he looked up at the women, who seemed unfazed by the fact that they had been peeked on. You see, brat, now they know I'm peeping on them. I wanted to catch them natural, but now they are going to act sexy on purpose. A woman's natural sexiness is far superior to forced sexiness. The master lectured Naruto, and he was about to hit Naruto on the head, before Naruto sent him a dangerous look and raised a hand. Naruto let his poison do the talking as some dripped from his arms. I will poison you and shove your body into a gay bar. Sounds like a party, I want to see this geezer take it in the dash. Do you girls mind going back to bathing? We've got some important villain things to talk about. I'm going to need a massage later anyway, so I'll see you soon enough. Naruto looked to the girls with a deadpan stare. He didn't feel the need to explain himself to the heroes, but when his body was properly massaged, he could create more poison before he hit a limit. It was a way to relax the glands in his body that helped to produce the poison. Okay. Nice tits on them. Mirko stated with an appreciative nod of her head, having gotten an eyeful of the women that had looked over the wall. She had large breasts herself, but half of those women blew her out of the water completely. It was a humbling experience for her, not really though since she had seen a ton of women both larger and smaller than herself. Honestly, it was just teenagers the like who even cared about comparing their breast size. Most adults really didn't care unless they were teased a lot as a teenager. Nobody teased her as a child, and got away with it. Fine brat, what do you want to talk about? The older man spoke as he turned his back to the women's bath, reluctantly, and he looked at Naruto. He glanced at those who were with him, but he focused on Naruto. Orochimaru. Now that is a good question. Figures you would ask me, considering he is no doubt after you. When you made a name for yourself, I had no doubt he would appear to take you. That was always how Orochimaru was. The man spoke with a solemn nod. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, not really caring about that part. You sound like you knew him personally, but Orochimaru has always worked alone. All Might spoke with a wary tone. He could feel the aura of strength that was now starting to radiate off of this man. He was a very powerful villain, though at first he seemed like just a normal pervert. The way his body didn't make any subtle movements in the slightest was perhaps the most airy thing about him. It was like he didn't move unless he made himself move, like he was one with nature, a stone statue. Villain name is Gamabunta, but other than peeking at women, I've retired from villain work, settled down and made my own book series. So you can call me Jiraiya? Jiraiya introduced himself with a grin, and a wink in Mirko's direction. She gave no indication that she cared that he winked at her, because she was neither flattered or disgusted. She was used to men flirting with her on some level. Is this the place to be having this conversation? All Might questioned Jiraiya, not remembering any villains with a name like that in recent history. Jiraiya sighed, before he stood up, and he walked over to a rock. Pushing the rock, he revealed a hidden door underneath it, and opened it up for them. If Orochimaru went public, then no use keeping him a secret. If he doesn't get what he wants, he is the type to declare a war for shits and giggles. Jiraiya explained as he started to walk down the stairs revealed to be behind the door. Naruto followed after him, and he waved for the heroes to follow him. Down the stairs, a blue light glowed, and there was a trash can with old used tissues, along with a bed, and sitting table, and some cushions. Not to mention the many writing tools that were all over the area. Mood, light. All Might looked up. He looked right back down when he came face to ass and pussy with a woman. The entire ceiling of the room was just glass connected to the hot springs. All the women in the water above them, they were able to see them from below. One-way glass, strong enough to withstand a lot of power. Best view, but the act of peeking, and the risk of getting caught is just such a turn-on. Shut up, pervy master, spill the details about Orochimaru. Naruto rather rudely stated as he elbowed Jiraiya, the man just looking up at the women above them. Mirko was looking too, but when Orochimaru was mentioned, she started to pay attention to the talks once more. Orochimaru is what, like 200 years old, you talk about him like an old friend. Mirko mentioned while scratching her head. Orochimaru's quirk allowed him to take new bodies and stay young forever. He was immortal in a way because of it. This man was powerful, but the likelihood of him being as old as Orochimaru was just insane. Jiraiya nodded his head. Orochimaru and I shared the same master, though we had another person with us back then. Orochimaru was an orphan from a young age. His parents' deaths really messed him up. It was the start of his twisted path into the inhuman monster he is today. If I had known, I would have killed him before he became too powerful. You were his teammate? All Might asked with shock, raising his arms up preparing for a fight. Jiraiya just took a pipe out and lit it. I'm not like him, I'm a villain, but for me being a villain isn't about being evil. It's about being free from the rules of society. I don't have the desire to cause harm to others unless I have to, so there is no need to dash. Jiraiya was stopped when Naruto touched All Might's face, and the man collapsed onto one of the cushions. Jiraiya just looked at Naruto with a raised eyebrow, and Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Poisoning All Might was just the quickest way to getting him to stop trying to put up a fight right now. Mirko lowered her fists too. Is your other teammate Dash? She isn't with us anymore. She was the first to end her life as a villain. She became a doctor, and had a child. You've actually met her great-grandchild. She's the hero recovery girl. Jiraiya mentioned, since a ton of pro-heroes had met that woman. He would sometimes check up on her, though the woman never saw him or knew he was keeping tabs on her. Orochimaru sought out immortality, and I decided to pass on my knowledge to my own students. My first student used his quirk and stopped me from aging. I taught him how to be a villain, but he never took to my lessons about being a peaceful villain. Jiraiya spoke with a regretful smile. He looked at Naruto. Your father was the second student of mine, but he never became a villain. He decided to use what I taught him to protect the people he loved. He was a good man, but not a villain. Jiraiya explained to them, and Naruto gestured for him to go on. Naruto helped All Might sit up to get him back into the conversation a little. We need to lure Orochimaru out, is that Dash? I'm talking, my master ended his own life, and that was the final straw. From there Orochimaru and I never really saw eye to eye. I can't help you much. We went down different paths in life, nor can I help you battle him. Jiraiya explained as he closed his eyes, and enjoyed a nice long drag of his pipe. He looked at Naruto, and both of them nodded their heads. Orochimaru only ever loved two things after his parents died, our master and collecting quirks. If you want to draw him out, you can use that against him. Orochimaru won't collect the quirks of people with quirks similar to the ones he already has, or those who don't interest him. Jiraiya explained what he did remember of Orochimaru's personality weaknesses. How does his quirk work? Is there a way to beat it? Mirko questioned, and Jiraiya looked at her with another appreciative eye. She had a nice rack. He raised two fingers. Orochimaru steals quirks by consuming the people he wants, fusing them into his body, both body and mind. It takes him longer to consume mutation-type quirks, since his body has to adjust to their inhuman body structure. Orochimaru absorbs the person's mind and memories, but he doesn't erase them. Jiraiya lowered the second finger up on his hand. The second part wasn't the weakness itself, but it was something he knew. While you're inside of Orochimaru, your mind is inside of his mind. He saw Naruto wave it out of his face with a displeased look. Surely, you could help us fight Dash. I'm quirkless, and while I stopped aging, my body stopped aging when I was starting to weaken. Liar, you're too powerful to be quirkless. A quirkless person can't be alive this long either. Mirko stood up and looked down at him. She hated excuses almost as much as she hated teaming up with others, but if she was going to be forced to join a team for this fight, then she would not accept anyone's excuses to not fight. He's technically quirkless. The quirk that is keeping him alive didn't originally belong to him. His quirk just stopped him from growing any older. Didn't you pay attention to his story? All Might asked her, and he looked at Jiraiya with narrowed eyes. This man was All for One's master. This was the man who taught All for One what he needed to know to become the monster of a man he became. As a thanks, All for One gave this man a quirk to allow his teacher to see him become a feared villain. Jiraiya, this man, was somebody that All Might didn't want to trust, and was not going to trust either. Bullshit. Mirko jumped into action. She would beat the truth out of Jiraiya. She was sick of all of this calm talking, so with a leg pulled back to kick the man, Mirko swung her leg. She was sent flying across the room though and cracked the stone wall with her body. Jiraiya had both of his arms extended, one with a flat palm, and one with 2 fingers out. Mirko collapsed and tried to catch her breath, but she found herself choking to death. She started to beat her fists on the ground. It was quickly becoming impossible for her to breathe. I've got no quirk, but back in my day, only 5% of the population had quirks, now 80% or more of people have them. Still, I had to train 10 times harder than either Tsunade or Orochimaru. I learned everything about the human body, and about people with quirks. I might not have a quirk, but don't think I can't fight, but Orochimaru's body isn't something I can deal with anymore. Jiraiya stated as he looked down at Mirko, who was starting to go red in the face as she continued to choke. Naruto went to her side, and he put his hand on her rib, before he pushed in deeply. Hiya! Mirko felt all of her breath rush into her lungs at once as she regained the ability to breathe. She started to sputter and cough, with Naruto patting her back, tears having leaked out of the corners of her eyes as she had been choking. In a split second, he forced her to kick herself with her knee, diverting all of her momentum into herself. Then he attacked a pressure point that stopped her ability to breathe. All Might was impressed, genuinely impressed by the display of skill that had just been shown to him. Those were the reflexes of a man who had taken 1,000 beatings to train his reflexes, somebody who had put in all the work and determination to become strong enough to challenge people who were naturally superior to him. He respected that, even if he was not going to trust this man. So, if you wanted, you could help us? All Might continued where Mirko left off, but more peacefully. I hate him so much. Orochimaru stopped having a human body, a genuine human body. My skills, they became useless against him a long time ago. The human bodies he borrows, they are just disguises. His real form is a thing of horror. Still, Orochimaru is a theatric man. You saved Nana Shimura from him. He isn't going to send any more minions after you. Just make your location known, and he will come. Jiraiya gave them the most simple way of getting Orochimaru to fight them at their leisure. He's too smart to fall for that. All Might argued against Jiraiya. Jiraiya nodded. You will never outsmart Orochimaru, but he is arrogant, prideful. Against his opponents, he believes he is a god looking at a human. He can back it up too. He doesn't care if the enemy is baiting him into a trap, he will walk into it willingly. Jiraiya actually laughed a little at that. It was the curse of becoming too strong, arrogance. The thing was, that Orochimaru was the first one to admit to his own arrogance, but he saw no reason to correct it. Mirko pulled herself back together, and returned back to normal, but she continued to glare at Jiraiya. Well, this is helpful. Mirko stated with a roll of her eyes. It was hard to believe that this was what they came all this way for. I dressed up like a villain for nothing, damn it, and we're no closer to actually beating Orochimaru. Mirko stated with a growl. They came all this way for nothing. Hey Muffin Top, say something got absorbed by something else, where would it go? Oh, and it can be unabsorbed, Naruto. Naruto started to type on his phone with a furrowed brow. Nobody saw what he had texted or who he had texted to, but they could see that he was looking at his phone with an intense stare as he did. All Might felt his body start to return to normal as the poison faded away from his system naturally. Who are you texting? Jiraiya tried to look over the table to see the phone. A smart person. Naruto stated as he got a response from Momo. Matter can't be created or destroyed, so whatever got absorbed would have to be stored away somewhere before it was released. Even if you can't see it, if it can be unabsorbed, then it still exists in its current form. Why? Momo. Naruto stared at the text for a full minute in silence. All quirks have weaknesses, there is no such thing as a perfect quirk. Orochimaru is only powerful because of all the different quirks he has stolen, and without Nana, he has been weakened a lot, he lost a lot of strength and speed. Naruto stated with a thoughtful grin growing on his face. He had an idea forming inside of his head, an idea that was so crazy, that if anybody could read minds they could call him insane. Mirko grinned. I like that look. Mirko could tell he had an amazing idea. I don't like that look. All Might could also tell that his idea was going to be insane. It wasn't a good look. Orochimaru doesn't just have a ton of quirks, he has the memories of every fighter he has stolen. He has the knowledge of countless heroes. We can't surprise him. All Might stated, and Naruto just showed off his grin. Well, let's just dash. Another location. Master, Orochimaru is going to make a move on Kurama. Kurojiiri stated as he looked into the radio. It was hard to believe there existed a second person with a quirk that could steal other quirks, but if there could be 1,000 different flame quirks, it only made sense that there existed more quirks capable of stealing quirks. Actually, the fact more people on the planet couldn't steal quirks was more surprising. You hold a personal interest in Kurama's growth, should we intervene? Kurojairi asked as he glanced at Tamura, who was tapping his finger on the table and scratching his throat. They wanted Kurama to join them for a reason. Having Orochimaru steal his body wouldn't be good for them. That would mean that Orochimaru would have a body that couldn't have Quirk stolen from it, meaning that it would only be a matter of time before the League of Villains met its end. This was very bad for them. Let them kill each other. He could have killed All Might so many times, and the little bastard didn't. Tamura grumbled with a hateful look at the TV. He was sick of hearing about Kurama. If it comes down to it, we will have to get involved. Orochimaru is quite the threatening existence. He's got even more quirks than I myself do. We've never clashed before, because our goals are very different. Sometimes, the best move is to just wait for the enemy to take themselves out. Orochimaru loves to play with his food. This could be the chance to test our secret weapon. All for One spoke through the radio with confidence. His voice showed that he did care about the outcome though. Still, they weren't in any immediate danger either. Orochimaru wanted to collect any quirk he found new or interesting. They had a goal that was something more base, killing heroes and turning Tamura into the symbol or evil. At the same time, some new developments were on the worrying side as well. Nana Shimura. Tamura scratched his neck more furiously when he heard the name mentioned. All Might's master. I was under the impression I killed her many years ago, but it would seem that Orochimaru took her before she died. She is no threat to us on her own. I'm more worried about how she interacts with Kurama. She is a very bright light. The reason All Might is the hero he is today. She should not be allowed to influence Kurama. All for One's voice showed a hint of worrying arrogance to it. He seemed simply arrogant, but there was audible worry in his voice to somebody listening to it. Only Kurojairi heard it. He understood it as well. All for One was afraid, not of Orochimaru's power, but of having his own power stolen. He, who stole so much power from others, would naturally fear having that very power stolen. That there existed a person who could steal everything from him would naturally be frightening. All for One was not going to want to get involved unless strictly needed, for fear that he might not be able to defeat Orochimaru. He didn't want to fight and find out for himself if he would come out on top. I want to kill Nana Shimura. I want her dead as much as All Might. Tamura seemed seconds away from snapping, so Kurojairi wisely stepped a little bit away from him. He didn't know why he wanted her dead, but he did. No, he knew why. She was All Might's master. That made him a part of his hated enemy. I want to kill her in front of him, make him watch it. Tamura smiled happily at the thought. Yes, that was what he wanted to make happen. You will have your chance. All for One encouraged, what little fear in his voice gone now. He seemed happier to have Tamura descending even further into evil itself. She gave All Might a hell of a fight. As she is right now, she's as strong or stronger than him. She might be on par with All for One as he is right now, but how long until the flames inside of her go out as well? Kurojairi thought practically on this. Tamura had zero chance of killing either Nana or All Might on his own, not unless he got them with a surprise attack with his quirk. They were both too strong for him as he was now. Still, they would both continue to grow weaker as time went on, and eventually, they would become weak enough to kill. I believe you should learn from Kurama. I'll kill you. Tamura warned Kurojairi, his fingers twitching dangerously. He didn't want to be compared to that man, who had so many chances to kill All Might, but chose not to. A real villain would have killed All Might the very first chance he got. He isn't a villain, he's just a hero pretending to be a villain. Tamura spoke with acid on his tongue. Kurojairi kept his mouth wisely shut, deciding that he better not say anything that would correct Tamura. He didn't mention that the term was anti-hero, or the fact that Kurama wasn't acting like an anti-hero since wasn't doing hero work most of the time. Most of the time he was using his quirk to cause a public disturbance, which was still technically villain work. The illegal use of a quirk to disrupt the public was indeed something that would class a person as a villain if their actions inconvenienced others. Kurojairi, your thoughts? All for One was curious on the other hand, though he did agree with the idea for his own reasons. Kurama is a single villain, but instead of using raw power, he plays mental games and deals only a single finishing blow. He waits to strike until the perfect moment. He is patient. Kurojairi just knew that Tamura had almost no patience, and him learning it would benefit him. Patience? Patience is important, Tamura. Sometimes, the best move is to not move at all, until you're sure of your victory. I never go into battle, if I don't think I will win. Weaken their fighting spirit, and then watch as they tear themselves apart. All for One gave a small and gentle lecture to Tamura, who calmed down when he heard who was speaking those words. The words were better received when they were from his master after all. With Jiraiya. Ha 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 ha. That plan is crazy, but I can't have ever thought of that. Jiraiya laughed when he heard Naruto's plan for defeating Orochimaru. A plan that was crazy, but made so much sense that it was pure insanity with a sprinkle of genius for good measure. All Might and Mirko were just shocked into silence at first when they heard the plan in its entirety. That is, so stupid. All Might had to state. That had no chance of working, at all. Nobody would fall for such an obvious trap. Still, the idea was crazy, but it had merits to it. He had forgotten the fact that quirks were still based in both biology and science, so while anything was possible, things were only possible to the most extremes. Impossible was still naturally impossible though what was and was not impossible had changed over the years naturally with the development of quirks. How many stupid ideas have I used to take all of you down? Naruto asked with a smirk on his face. There was a pause as Mirko and All Might thought about how many times they had been taken down by odd plans. Each had been taken down by unexpected plans more times than they would care to admit, so the plan did have some validity to it as well. Endeavor and the others will never agree to this, they don't even really want to work with you. Mirko admitted with a soft frown. She hated working with other heroes, but the others, there was no way they would have faith in the plan of a villain. Also, that plan, you won't be left in a great position to escape either. One of the other heroes will use this as a chance to capture you. Mirko's voice showed some concern. After all, she was going to be the one to capture him, not some random hero who wanted to get him while he was down. She didn't want anyone stealing her man. His heart or the credit for capturing him, she wanted both, and she was going to have both. Still, Orochimaru took priority at the moment, and she needed to keep that on her mind. I do agree there. Jiraiya, you're sure that you can't help us? All Might asked, though he would rather not get the help of a villain. Naruto not counting in his eyes as a villain anymore. If the man was truly a retired villain, and Naruto's teacher, then that would be a massive bonus to their fighting force. Quirk or no quirk, he was a good fighter who could help them if Orochimaru did indeed have minions help him fight. Jiraiya just smiled. I've already done enough, now you all have the tools you need to win. Jiraiya just answered with a wave of his hand, and he looked at Naruto. So brat, you fucking this one? Jiraiya changed the subject and gestured to Mirko. There is a dangerous criminal on the loose. All Might reminded Jiraiya that this wasn't the time to talk about this. Not yet, but I'll make him a real man soon enough. Not only am I going to be the one to capture him, but I'm going to wring him so dry that deserts look like oceans. Mirko spoke seriously, taking it that she had the master's approval to be with the younger male. Jiraiya looked at her with some surprise over how dirty that her statement was. He addressed All Might though. You are all about to face Orochimaru, you shouldn't do that with any regrets. I honestly suggest spend at least one day before your fight, fulfilling as many of your desires as possible, make sure not to leave this world with many regrets. Jiraiya explained his reasoning to All Might for bringing it up. He looked at Mirko, before he nodded his head to her. I give my blessing, I made him a villain. I leave it to you to make him a man. Jiraiya extended his hand to her. She got his blessing, so now she liked this man more than she first thought. She extended her own and shook his head, while Naruto simply face-palmed. I'm not going to have sex with her, she confessed to me and I dash. Sex and responding to the confession are two different things. If Orochimaru captures you, he will use your regrets against you as he tries to take control over your mind. The stronger your regrets, the more he can weaken your mind. Jiraiya lectured Naruto with a sleazy smile on his face, his notepad already in his hand. Mirko nodded her head wildly as she stared down at Naruto. All Might thought about his own regrets. I need to spend tonight talking with Master, and I need to make sure that Midoriya will have a teacher if I die. All Might didn't agree with using a day to fulfill every desire and regret a person had, but those were two things he had to do. He finally got the chance to have his master back, and he had a duty to ensure that his successor would grow up with a teacher. Mirko stared down Naruto. Why did he have to play hard to get? Well, I've got research to do, so all of you need to leave. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed seriously, and All Might was the happiest to do that. The red light district made him highly uncomfortable as it was, but it was worth it if they walked away with such intense knowledge on their enemy that could help them. He would be trying to forget some of the things he saw today for sure, but he hated the fact that he was sworn into secrecy on a villain bar. He gave his word, so he wouldn't speak a word of the villain bar to any of the other heroes, or try to take it out. He was going to have to make sure that if he ever saw that woman, he would take her down for murder against her fellow human though. He couldn't fight her in the bar, but he would track her down outside of it for sure. That could wait until Orochimaru was caught or killed though. It was an experience meeting you. All Might did give out a respectful farewell though to the man as he started to walk out of the room and up the stairs. Mirko followed behind him with a thoughtful look on her face, not deeming it important to say goodbye to Naruto's master. She had a list of things she was going to get done before the big fight. Naruto started to leave, but Jiraiya put a hand on his shoulder, stopping him for a moment. Your parents would totally spank your ass for not banging that hot chick. Jiraiya at first sounded serious. Naruto turned around and gave him a sucker punch to the gut that folded him over. Yep, saw that coming? Jiraiya gasped for air. He sometimes forgot that Naruto had enhanced strength because of his quirk, but it was so worth saying that. See you later, pervy master. Naruto stated as he quickly hurried off after the heroes, to make sure that they didn't run into a villain and lose themselves too badly. Jiraiya was left alone. His face became solemn. Naughty, naughty Jiraiya, telling secrets like that. A smooth, but gruff, voice spoke as a white snake started to burrow out of the ground. Jiraiya just sat down comfortably, and he started to write down in his notes. I told you, if you ever told my secrets, I would know. The snake's mouth opened up, and Orochimaru started to come out of it. He implanted one of his snakes in Jiraiya, so that if the man ever told his weaknesses, he would know and be able to put an end to the man. Jiraiya was fully aware of the snake inside of his body, but the man had spoken secrets anyway. Orochimaru opened up his mouth, and pulled a sword out of his throat, pointing it at the side of Jiraiya's neck. You must have rushed to get here as fast as you could, and I know you. Now that your enemy knows your weakness, this has gotten 10 times more fun for you. Jiraiya spoke with a smirk on his face growing, mocking Orochimaru. Orochimaru just laughed mockingly right back at him. You're a fool to believe the heroes or Kurama can stop me, but your confidence is interesting. Still, if you trained Kurama, then the person who gave him his villain name was also you. Orochimaru pushed his sword up against Jiraiya's neck, before he changed its location to the middle of his back. I never once abandoned the teachings of our master, and that boy holds the same ideals as our master. I saw it fitting for him to carry on my legacy, master's legacy. He holds in him the same desire for freedom that master had. Jiraiya spoke in his usual lofty voice, as if he were just talking about the weather or something else obvious. All for One became the villain, Minato gained the ideals, but Naruto is the villain who holds master's ideals. He is the child who will change the future of villains. He will stop you. Jiraiya spoke as he turned his head to look at Orochimaru. Orochimaru was just smiling, as if he found Jiraiya's words hilarious. I thought it was just a coincidence that Kurama had the same name as master. Very well, I'll give Kurama 24 hours before I take him. Let's see just how much of a challenge your little student can put up before I take him. Orochimaru raised the sword up higher, and positioned it to stab Jiraiya. Orochimaru didn't see Jiraiya even look like he was going to fight back, and just allow himself to be killed. Not going to fight back, or cower? Orochimaru asked with a raised brow. Jiraiya just smirked. Humans shouldn't live forever anyway, we're supposed to die and pass on our ideals to the next generation. Those ideals will grow, evolve, and one day they too will pass on. Our generation ended a long time ago. I've passed on my ideals, I can't beat you, but he will. When you lose to my student, know that you might have killed me, but my teachings will end you. Jiraiya accepted his coming death calmly, grinning as he turned his head to look away from Orochimaru. You will die believing a fool's dream. At least his last image would be of the naked beauties above him. A fitting place for him to meet his end. Chapter 24. Anyway, he's staying with a friend tonight, so I've got the place all to myself again, bit depressing honestly. I'm sort of used to at least knowing he is here, even though I'm usually a little busy. Namuri spoke with her father on the computer, looking at him nodding as he listened to her problems. She had finished her paperwork, she was off duty at the moment, and Naruto was off at a friend's place. She didn't know which friend, but she would guess it might be one of the girls who had been showing interest in him. She noticed how some of the boys and girls in the general studies class would send him lustful gazes. He was quite the looker, and despite being in the general studies class, he had the body of a student who belonged in the hero course. Looks like you're suffering from empty nest syndrome already. I'm happy to see you love your new son so much already. Namuri smiled. I mean, he's my son, where he came from doesn't matter. I know he hasn't bonded much to me, but since the day I took him to the hospital I realized what it means to be a mother. He's my boy. Namuri said as she laid her head down at the counter. She would usually call her father a few times a week if possible, though with all the recent stresses in her life, she wasn't able to do that lately. He's even been attracting the attention of Mirko, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. Still, I wish he would accept me as his family, but until he does, I won't force him. Namuri spoke with a small sigh. Her father looked through the cam over her shoulder, to what was standing behind her, a figure that was cloaked in the shadows of her dark apartment. It was super late at night, and she had turned off most of the lights, with the computer being the only light that was on. A male figure was getting closer to her, and reaching out for her. "I mean, I don't hate you anymore." "Eep!" Namuri yelped as she jerked around, and came face to face with a man she hadn't even noticed was in her apartment. With her body not blocking the light anymore, she saw that Naruto had come home early, and he was holding a small box in his hands. Naruto, you nearly gave me a heart attack." Namuri stuttered through her sentence as she held her quickly beating chest. She wished he would make some damn noise when he walked. The toad-like way that he moved around without making a lot of sound was startling. "I can't see us as a family yet, but I know you're trying your hardest, and even I can't hate somebody who is trying so hard to do right," Naruto mentioned, ignoring her statement as he sat down next to her. He didn't know what the others who were going to be facing Orochimaru soon were going to be doing, and he didn't ask, but he had already completed most of what he had done. He had already spent all of his saved-up money to drop by presents at the orphanage, since if the next day went badly, he wasn't going to be able to do much for orphans anymore. He didn't have a lot of regrets in his life, because he hadn't lived a long enough time to regret a lot of things. His biggest regret, though, was never being able to spend time with his parents. "I thought you were going to be spending time with your friends," Namuri asked as she looked at him, her heart still racing, but she herself calming down. Naruto tossed the box on the table. "I've always wanted to do this with my parents. This is something I've always regretted not being able to do. Can you take their place?" Naruto asked her as he pushed the box across the counter to her. Her father, seeing something good happening, wisely decided to end the call without saying another word, a smile on his face. Naruto sat down next to Namuri as she looked at the box, with some surprise on her face. It wasn't some interesting or old board game, or a video game, or anything like that. It was something that parents did with their children a lot when the child was growing up. A puzzle. Going from the box, it was just a puzzle of the great blue ocean, a sandy beach, and a sunset. It was a puzzle with a lot of pieces, close to 5,000 of them. She would be working on it with Naruto for a long time if they decided to do this, and to be fair, she wasn't exactly a fan of puzzles, though she didn't hate them. She looked at how he wasn't looking at her directly though, and she felt a goodness in her chest. She smiled and opened the box up, pouring all the pieces out onto the table. "Since everyone is going to be busy preparing for the sports festival soon, I'll call in sick tomorrow, so we can stay up all night and have some fun with this," Namuri stated as they started to work together slowly to build up the puzzle. They didn't talk at first, they spent 30 minutes passing pieces to each other, trying to find matches. Naruto had never put a puzzle together in his life, and Namuri hadn't done it since she herself was a child. It wasn't a comfortable silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just silent as they worked well into the night to put together a puzzle. Namuri just put her hand on his back and started to rub it as she allowed her chest to rest on the corner of the counter, breathing easier now that her chest wasn't straining her back. This was their puzzle. "Huh? My father decided, in order to protect the orphans from villains who would adopt me to get control of them, to transfer the orphanage to the government if I was adopted. Still, I also got all their worldly possessions. This was a puzzle they got, but never opened up. I stopped by the orphanage and got it," Naruto told her as he put two pieces together after what was close to 10 minutes since the last pieces he had put together. Puzzles this big were slow work, and they weren't going to complete it anytime soon. "They got this to do with me when I was older. When I was a little kid, I wanted to do this with the people who would adopt me," Naruto explained to her. She listened. When he was a child, before he had become a teen and became burdened by his love for taking care of orphans. When he was a child, he had wanted to be adopted just like the other kids. But, mutant-type quirks weren't very popular. It wasn't as common, but some people were still weirded out by mutant types. What was more, was that a lot of children with cooler, or at least more impressive, quirks were often picked before others. People wanted impressive children, those with bright futures ahead of them. A kid with a toad quirk just wasn't impressive when compared to so many other quirks. He was forced to watch as everybody but him was adopted. Eventually, he gave up and devoted his life to helping the other children find happiness. Namuri felt tears sting her eyes a little when she came to that hard realization, and it truly hit her. No doubt he became friends with those other children, and loved them, and was also forced to let go of them. He was raised together with them, they were his siblings, and he always had to part ways with everyone he came to consider family. His very existence must have been painful for him. To come to learn he would never be loved by parents, and forced to say goodbye to the children he came to see as siblings. The realization would be hard for a child, and it would be the cause of some serious self-confidence issues, deep-seated ones. She wanted him to continue. "My dad was an orphan, and my mom became an orphan when she was a child. They never got to do this with their families either. I was told. I think, they would really want me to do this. Naruto told Namiri as he refused to meet her gaze. He was sure that his parents wouldn't want him to hate Namiri, and he didn't hate her. He just couldn't accept her yet, but hearing about Orochimaru and how he had become consumed by a singular desire. He was going to give Namiri a chance, because he didn't want to live the rest of his life regretting not giving her a chance. I never met them, but if you're anything like them, I can bet they just wanted you to be happy with a family one day. Namiri hesitated as she reached out with her hand, going up towards his head. She could see he was watching her out of the side of his eye, and there was hesitation in his eyes too. That piece matches, by the way. Namiri changed directions and grabbed a piece looked like it would match with the one that he was holding. No, it doesn't. You're right, it doesn't. Namiri agreed with a grin. Whoops, looks like she made a small mistake. Let's work on the outside edges first. Let's find all the corner pieces, still a ton of them though. Namiri spoke with a wink as she started to separate all inside and outside pieces apart from each other. They stopped talking again, but the silence wasn't as uncomfortable as it had been. It wasn't comfortable, but it was calm. It was a peaceful silence. At first at least, she could see that he was really trying to do some work on the puzzle. This is really fun? Naruto thought to himself as he failed to find matching pieces. Failing was fun for some reason. At the hospital. And my best friend is David Shield. He's a genius inventor, an old college buddy of mine from America. He makes and designs all much hero suits. Toshinori explained as he dressed in clothes that actually fit him. He smiled as he spoke one-on-one with Nana, who was awake though back on the medication that was keeping her a little sedated. She was no longer having her blood filtered though, so while she was sedated, she wasn't as weak. She had coherent thought enough to speak and listen to others. He sounds wonderful. Nana just smiled as she listened. Though, sometimes he gets on to me for forgetting to call. He's got a daughter, and she just turned 17 not long ago. She's quirkless like me, but she wants to become an inventor like her father, and build support items. Toshinori went on. This was what he wanted to do, this was all he wanted to do with what remaining time he had. If things went south with Orochimaru, and he ended up dead, he wanted to spend as much time as he could catching up with his master. He had so much he wanted to talk with her about, so much that she had missed. She had missed his rise into becoming the symbol of peace. He had achieved his dream without her there watching him. She, who had given him his quirk, had been the one who gave him the ability to strive for his dream in the first place. Without her, none of what he had achieved would have been possible for him. Support items, there must be some really cool things around today, huh? Nana asked him with a wide smile. She could only imagine the new and interesting things inventors made to help people get their quirks under control or assist their hero work. She wasn't the brainy type, so she didn't understand the technical aspects of it. She wasn't stupid, but you would not see her building any robots anytime soon. There are so many support items that surprise me now. Toshinori admitted with a wide smile. He didn't use them himself, but the state of Adventist support items sometimes surprised even him. Honestly, he didn't care what he was talking about to her, he just wanted to talk with her more. It was something he would have never thought he would be able to do again, after he had spent so little time with her in the past. So many years had gone by, and there was so much he wanted to talk with her about. Without Midoriya with him, he didn't know what all to talk about, that was just how much stuff he had in his mind. Nana smiled. Looking outside this window, the world seems just like it did before my fight with All for One, but everything is different. The new heroes, the new villains, the world is constantly changing and evolving. I can't wait to become part of the world again. Nana said as she looked out the window, her eyes filled with hope. She had so much she had to learn, to catch up on, and so many new things she could experience. You don't have one for all anymore, and have a successor of your own, and the flames of one for all inside of me have started to vanish now that I'm not connected to him. Nana mentioned as she flexed her hand a few times. She would grow weaker and weaker, until the flames inside of her faded away forever. She had been gone for so long, that not only had her successor defeated All for One, but he had passed the quirk on to his own successor in order to face All for One again in the future when he returned. Midoriya has a hero's heart, he will succeed me, just like I did you. He will become the next symbol of peace, and hopefully I will be there to watch him grow. Toshinori didn't say that to Nana, knowingly, he was speaking without meaning to. She realized it pretty easily, and she reached out to rub the top of his head. You will be. But you need to be there for him. It's a student's job to surpass the master, and you need to become a better teacher for your successor than I was for you. You might have become stronger than me, but until you've still got a lot to learn it seems. Nana comforted him, he needed it. Tomorrow was going to be a horrible day for him, and she knew that there was a chance he would die. If he died, then she knew that Orochimaru would come for her, and put her back in that hell she suffered from for so long. She couldn't fight, so she was going to have to sit back and allow others to do the fighting. She felt shame knowing that she wasn't capable of fighting Orochimaru, or taking revenge against All for One either. The longer she lived, the more she would lose her powers. "I'm just happy you're back," Toshinori stated with a brighter smile. "It's so strange, my student is older than I am now, and he's been a hero for longer than I remember being alive. You've changed a lot, Toshinori." Nana looked at him, and he made her feel older than she would have otherwise felt. She had been a parent and wife when she had been his master, and now he was far older than she had been when she had been his teacher. In living memory, her student she should have died protecting, was now older than she was. It truly was like she was thrust into the future. Yet, his eyes were sparkling with the same admiration that they had been when he had first come to her and started to learn from her. It made her feel horrible, knowing that she had left such a huge hole in his heart with her sacrifice. She reached out, and she gently rubbed the top of his head. "The world has changed." Toshinori combated her on that issue. He was mostly the same, it was everything that was different. He felt like he was stuck in the past too, even though unlike her, he had been given the chance to go through time naturally. He looked at her smile and looked through the window at the moon in the sky, her reaction to it surprisingly peaceful. "Your student, Izuku Midoriya, he seems like a good kid. He was just like you when you were his age, though you were a lot taller than him. I hope he can be the one to truly end All for One for good, so that Kurama can truly take over as the real top villain." "Huh?" Toshinori questioned with shocked eyes. Heroes need villains, and villains look to the top villain as their symbol. If Kurama is that symbol though, if such a good person were to become the symbol of evil, I think the world would be a much brighter place. Nana spoke gently. A world where villains were less evil and more for entertainment. She had nothing to do in the hospital bed, so she had been watching the news and YouTube videos. A world where heroes weren't losing their lives all the time, and neither were civilians due to villains. Villains would always sprout up. There would never be a world without villains so long as there was a world with rules and laws. There would always be people who would break the laws, but if the majority of villains were villains inspired by somebody like Kurama, well, the world would be more fun. She wanted to see that world. Location, Okazaki Shrine. "Rurumi?" "Hey Mom. Dad," Rumi stated as she walked up the steps and greeted her parents with an awkward wave, wearing her shrine priestess outfit that she had so long ago abandoned when she joined a hero school. Her parents looked very different to herself. Her father was a pale and skinny man with her white hair, and his ears were rabbit ears like her own. He wore shrine priest clothes, and he seemed sickly. Her mother had a bunny tail, and she was also a pale-skinned woman, with black hair and burning red eyes, and she was shorter than even Rumi was. Her tanned skin wasn't natural, she was naturally pale-skinned like most people with rabbit-type quirks. She had gotten a tan to set herself apart from her family, and to appear different, she had worked out to the point that she had visible muscle. She was extremely different to her parents, though her quirk was a combination of both of their quirks. "Rumi, you're here, you never come back." Rumi's father spoke with a shake to his voice, unable to hold himself back as he started to walk towards her. They talked on the phone, but she never visited the shrine anymore. They hadn't even seen each other in person in years, since she was always so busy with her hero work. Rumi's mother just covered her mouth, shocked and happy as tears leaked out of the corners of her eyes. Rumi blushed and raised a hand, waving awkwardly. "It's been a while. The shrine looks good." Rumi spoke as she glanced around, purely because she was too ashamed to look her parents in the eyes. Her regret. That she became too distant with her parents, to the point she hadn't been in decent contact with them for years. She wanted to make amends with her parents, and like her, they were night owls too, so she knew they would be up. At first, she thought about meeting up with Naruto and fucking his brains out until he begged for her to give him mercy, not just a softcore romantic fucking. Not hardcore, balls to the wall, fucking where beds were broken, sheets needed to be burned to get the sin out of them, and somebody was going to be getting the best sleep of their life when they finally passed out. She had planned on really taking his balls, and draining them dry with every sexual hole on her body, until he couldn't come anymore, and then she would ride him another 3 times for good measure. She would show him the charm of an experienced adult woman, instead of that teenage girl that he seemed to keep his eye on. She's got her mother's bedroom eyes, whatever man she is interested in is going to be sore for weeks. Rumi's father shivered when he saw that look, a look he didn't want to see on his daughter. "Dad? Mom? You came here because you heard from my sister, that I'm pregnant, you came back to us, so our family can be complete again." Rumi's mother was so visibly joyful that her daughter was back to congratulate them for their pregnancy. Rumi's jaw dropped. "Mom, you're like 40 now, you're too old to." Rumi stopped herself from going too far with that. Her mother was 41, and her father was 52. Actually, now that she thought about it, she was in a similar situation as her father, having fallen in love with somebody that was underage. Their marriage had worked out, because they had been able to prove that their sexual relationship had been a legitimate romantic relationship to the court when confronted about their ages. She was so happy to live in Japan, because many other countries were less lenient about that, otherwise she would be in a lot of trouble for all the nasty things she planned on doing to Naruto. She was going to fill her pussy with whipped cream, make him lick it all out of her, and then fill him with his own cream. Instead of whipped cream, since she had really tanned skin, maybe she could cover her entire body, minus her head, in chocolate and make him eat it all off of her to reveal his prize. "You're in love, when is your due date?" Rumi's mother asked her as she looked at her daughter show that dirty, kinky face that ran in her side of the family. She put her hand on her daughter's belly, feeling less awkward as she talked with her daughter. Rumi laughed and rubbed the back of her head. "I'm not pregnant yet, I might be soon though." Rumi laughed as she admitted. Yeah, with what she planned on doing, Naruto was going to be filling her womb to the literal brim, until she was satisfied with how much he was ramming her. She read that toads could mate for hours, days, and some of them would even mate for months as they lived their lives together. She didn't know how well that would translate to a toad quirk, the reason she looked that information up, but she was sure that Naruto's stamina would be able to keep up with her own. "You're dating then, that's great to hear." Rumi's father spoke with a soft smile. "I'm not dating him, yet, but I'm in love, and I plan on being intimate, and condoms are for pussies, and I hear it's better without them dash." "It really is." Rumi's mother agreed with her there. She had never used a condom for any of her partners throughout her entire life, before her husband, or with her husband. She had no doubt her daughter would have been the same way. "Well, when can we meet him?" she asked her daughter with a smile. Rumi frowned. If the coming battle went south, then they wouldn't ever see each other again. This would be the last time she saw her parents, and they saw her. She wouldn't be in her future sibling's life, and this would be the last time her parents could talk with her. Well, he'll really be a part of the family soon enough. You should do what I did. When I fell for your father, I seduced him and made sure he got me pregnant after he confessed to me. We've been happily married ever since." She hugged her husband as she gave her daughter advice, feeling no more awkwardness around her daughter. Rumi smiled, and gave a thumbs up. "Gotcha." With Naruto. Naruto shifted in his seat. For a while now, he felt an impending sense of terror in his balls. His balls felt a disturbance in the force, like billions of sperm were crying out in fear, sensing impending doom coming for them. It was a deep, primal fear, as if a danger was coming for them. For some reason, he believed that if he survived tomorrow, he was going to wish he were dead. Chapter 25. Let's just start off by saying, I'm really not comfortable leaving my back to a bunch of heroes, even more so some of which want to kill me so that Orochi can't get me. Naruto was surrounded by several of the strongest heroes around, the ones who would be helping him fight against Orochimaru. While they were all a part of the top 10 in terms of popularity, the top 10 was never about who the top 10 strongest heroes were. It was about who the top 10 heroes were who did the job the best, and these 5 were the ones who were actually combat heroes among the top 10. It's the quickest and easiest solution. Endeavor pointed out as he stood across from Naruto, who was keeping a wary eye on him. The best fighters among the top 10. All Might. Endeavor. Best Genist. Mirko. Ryukyu. You know, this would be a good chance to redeem yourself. Helping us take down a dangerous criminal would be a good way for you to make amends for your crimes and get an official pardon. Best Genist pointed out to Naruto, who just gave a cocky laugh. Yep, because I care about a clean record. Anyway, you're assuming any of you live after the fight, the trap is already set, now we've just got to wait for Orochimaru to show up. Naruto stated as he glanced over at All Might, who had revealed his true form to the other heroes for the pure sake of keeping himself from overusing his powers. Anyway, when you all fail, I've got a backup plan anyway. Pop should be here soon with my backup plan. Naruto stated as he looked at his watch. According to the plan, Pop Step was going to be meeting with a friend of hers, and she would be bringing something that would be very important to the backup plan. You're getting an innocent involved? All Might asked with a concerned look. Mirko actually coughed into her hand, since she actually kind of knew who Naruto was talking about, having seen the girl before. Though, that situation had nothing to do with Naruto, and she was just recently remembering that situation. Endeavor walked menacingly over to Naruto, gripping his fists tightly as fires started to form on them. Endeavor is losing his temper. Ryukyu thought, but she didn't need to even try and stop Endeavor because a pink-haired girl that she also recognized from a party from a while back hopped into the window awkwardly. She blinked, and everyone else did as well, when the girl came into the room carrying a case. "Kurama, I've got the stuff you wanted, a friend of mine talked to." "Oh, I'm." Popstep looked around and saw that she was the center of attention. She looked towards Naruto, and she blinked and tilted her head. "You know, this stuff is really dangerous. I don't know what you need it for, but it won't end up good." Popstep warned him, but he took the case from her anyway with a shrug of her shoulders. "Not for me, anyway, you better go. If you stay much longer, you might get caught up in some really nasty stuff." Naruto warned her with a wave of his hand. She nodded and jumped away. Everyone looked at Naruto when he started to open the case, only for him to look at each of them in turn. He kept the case closed, since he didn't want any of them to see what he was planning apparently. "You know, I'm sure you can trust your teammates. We're really not a team though, I'm a villain working with you for my own benefit and to save lives." All Might added in when Naruto denied working with them for the reason of being heroic. He was sure that Naruto was only doing this for his own reasons as well, but to deny that Naruto was still teaming up with them either way would be pointless in the long run. The news had already reported that he and Naruto had teamed up before against his master. "Well, look away. What I'm about to do isn't exactly pleasant to look at, and if Orochi takes over your bodies, then you cannot know my plan, and him know about it because of you," Naruto demanded when he saw nobody had taken their eyes off of him. He wouldn't get into a heroics argument with All Might. The guy seemed to be on the line of thought that he would become a hero after all of this was over with. Endeavor was the first to look away, and he did it spitefully, since he understood that Naruto had a point. He had seen Orochimaru gain more power in person, and he knew that fighting a man who could use his stolen quirks even better than the people he stole them with was a serious threat. He didn't have to like it. "This isn't some suicide plan, is it?" Best Jeanist asked with a furrowed brow. "It better not be. You don't die until I say you do, and until after I've caught you myself at the very least." Mirko looked at him with a cocky grin. Her skin had a little less color, despite the attitude that she was showing. "My plan is more likely to kill one of you than it is to kill me, a sacrifice I'm willing to make." Naruto deadpanned. They were all only looking away from him for a few seconds, but when they turned around, the case was open and empty. "How do you know that Orochimaru is going to come here?" Ryukyu questioned Naruto, since this location was his idea. It was an old, abandoned school that was scheduled to be destroyed and replaced with a hero agency. The building was strong enough to handle a bit of damage without collapsing, but her quirk wasn't good for indoor fighting. Naruto shrugged. He picked the building, but it was All Might who made a short TV appearance and made the challenge to Orochimaru public. He also made an announcement that this general area needed to be evacuated of all civilians and even all heroes unrelated to this team of heroes. "He's a bastard, but he is a bastard with style. He wants this to be dramatic, so he won't turn down a direct challenge, right Orochimaru?" Naruto leaned up against the wall, and he looked at the broken vent where a white snake came out of, and it opened its mouth impossibly wide, to allow Orochimaru to come out of it. Orochimaru, to the heroes, appeared out of nowhere. Endeavor didn't hesitate even for a moment to spew a narrow, but far hotter than normal, stream of flames out of his hands at the white snake. Orochimaru put his hand out, and beams of wood grew out of it, and formed at an angle. The flames traveled down the side of the wood, burning the wood as it did, and missed Orochimaru completely as they melted a large hole in the wall next to Naruto. Kamui Wood's quirk. Ryukyu clenched her fists when she saw Orochimaru use the exact same quirk, in nearly the exact same way, as the hero who he had taken. "So, Kurama-kun, how long have you known I was here?" Orochimaru questioned Naruto as he was restrained by the fibers of his own clothes, moving on their own. Best Jeanist using his quirk to control them, and wrap them tightly around Orochimaru. He only had eyes for Naruto though as he dodged a punch from a muscled-out All Might, who destroyed the wall next to Orochimaru. He cut the fibers restraining him with a sharp blade of bone that grew out of his shoulder. He didn't even look at the heroes yet. Snakes came out of the bottoms of his pants, and started to scatter across the room, traveling towards all of the heroes. Mirko kicked the door down, grabbing it and throwing it at the snake crawling at her. Ryukyu didn't have anything she could do but dodge the snake when it snapped at her, while Endeavor burned the snake to a crisp. All Might dodged the snakes as he tried to land a hit on Orochimaru, who was reading his punches. "You've grown weaker, Tashinori, but then again, I don't have your master in me anymore, so I guess your punches are rather dangerous for me." Orochimaru mused, taking notice of the only real threat among the fighter heroes in the room. Each of the others were little more than backup for All Might and Kurama in front of him. They were the only ones with any chance of taking him in the coming fight. He glanced at Naruto, who had yet to make a move. "Poison him, Kurama!" Mirko shouted as the snake she destroyed turned into 3 snakes, splitting itself and becoming a greater threat to her. The snakes grew in size as well, flipping. She knocked down parts of the ceiling and crushed the multiplying snakes underneath them. She was pushed back by All Might's next punch, which released a shockwave that tossed the snakes in the room against the walls, and pushed back all of the heroes. All Might was visibly angry. "Oh, that is a scary face, better just turn yourself in, Orochi-chan. This isn't going to end well for you, since you've fallen right into our trap. There are no hostages for you to use here, and we can all fight at full strength in this place, except Ryukyu, but she totally sucks anyway." Naruto explained to Orochimaru as a snake finally targeted him. Out of his pocket, he pulled out a knife and cut the snake's head off, before he stomped on the body as he charged towards Orochimaru. He jumped on top of All Might's shoulder and was tossed towards Orochimaru by the older man, reaching his hand out towards Orochimaru's face. "Just one tough. Hey! That wasn't nice." Ryukyu defended herself from snakes, explaining how a single touch from Kurama was fatal, before she realized that he had just insulted her. "Kurama, now isn't the time for witty banter," Mirko added as she jumped over the snakes and hopped towards Endeavor, kicking a large snake that burst out of the wall in the head. He burnt the remains of all the snakes on the floor to crisps, preventing all of them from spawning more snakes, the heroes all now free to target Orochimaru. Naruto's reach fell short when Orochimaru placed his foot forward, and a wall of ice grew between Naruto and him. "Surely, Kurama, you don't think I wasn't aware of this trap, but trap or not, the end result doesn't change. You 6 versus me. Well, even with Nana Shimura among my body count, my battle strength has only been lowered by 1/3 of my total strength. I've more than enough strength to kill the 5 heroes here, and take you." Orochimaru spoke with absolute and utter certainty in his voice. He placed his hands together, forming a double-handed gun with them, and wind force gathered at the tips of his fingers. "After all, it is I who has mastered all elemental quirks. I have mastered all strength, speed, and transformation quirks." Orochimaru grabbed with amusement. He shattered his own ice wall, and All Might was on the front of the battle, throwing a punch strong enough to overpower the wind force. His target was gone though. "Too bad for you, I mastered a skill that doesn't use a quirk." "What?" Orochimaru blinked in surprise. He wasn't the only one either, when a knife pierced through his shoulder. Naruto stood, behind Orochimaru, with a grin showing under his mask as he twisted the knife deeper into Orochimaru. "I see, you erased your breath, emptied your mind, and got rid yourself of the ability to be sensed. A very dangerous skill indeed." Orochimaru wasn't above praise as well as mocking his opponents. "Grab him, use your poison, Kurama. Do it already, you little bastard." Endeavor shouted out as he created a spear of flames in his hand and took aim at Orochimaru. Best Jeanist saw his chance. Parts of Orochimaru's clothes, the fibers in them, went wild as they sunk into the knife wound and stitched the wound open, to prevent it from healing. Endeavor threw his spear after taking a step even further back. All Might punched the spear when Orochimaru's face cracked, and a different person appeared underneath it. He destroyed Endeavor's attack, as the Orochimaru they were facing was revealed to be a different person. "Oh, don't want to attack a fake, like I said, this trap was already a failure. A small amount of research, and a little bit of distraction, and I already managed to take over the body of one of the heroes in this room." A different man, being controlled by Orochimaru, stated with a neutral look as everyone in the room seemed shocked. One of them was Orochimaru. "Ryukyu, you've barely done anything. You're Orochimaru." Mirko wasted no time in figuring out that the person who had done the least amount of fighting was the person who had been Orochimaru this entire time. She jumped across the room, absolutely destroying the wall behind her by the force of her jump, and slammed her fist into Ryukyu's face at full force. Ryukyu, with a broken nose, grabbed Mirko's fist and flipped her over her shoulder, slamming Mirko into an old desk, shattering it with her body. "Mirko, calm yourself," Ryukyu shouted, before parts of her clothing wrapped around her, the fibers stretching out and binding her arms behind her back. Unable to move even a little, she looked towards to Best Jeanist. Her method aside, Endeavor tried to kill the fake Orochimaru, something in character for him. All Might instantly recognized a threat to an innocent, and went to stop it. Mirko moved to attack based purely on her own feelings, with no regards to rational thought. Her gut instinct is crude, but she does point her finger at the only person who could possibly be Orochimaru, you. Best Jeanist explained what he had quickly deduced with the facts that he knew about all of the people in the room. "What about Kurama dash?" I'm his target. If he could have stolen my body, this entire charade would be pointless. I'm the only person Oroki-chan can't be. Naruto pointed out that him getting his body stolen was not only the worst-case scenario, but it was also something that would have made Orochimaru coming to the trap completely pointless from Orochimaru's point of view. People don't take bait when they already caught the fishy. Naruto added in as he looked at the wounded man, as All Might undid Best Jeanist stitching to allow the wound to quickly repair itself. All Might pulled out a needle and stabbed the man with it, with snakes coming out of his mouth and dying on the floor around him. I apologize, Kurama, but I had the doctors take my master's blood and use it to create a poison strong enough to kill the snakes, but not a human. All Might apologized to Naruto softly as he looked down at the man who was convulsing on the ground. It was something he did, even though he promised Naruto not to. Having a way to free Orochimaru's victims was more important than keeping his promise at a time like this. He hoped that Naruto would understand. I'm not Orochimaru, it's Endeavor. Orochimaru has Endeavor's memories, so of course he wouldn't hesitate to kill his own victims with Endeavor's quirk. Since it's something Endeavor would do, he could easily get away with it. Ryukyu shouted as she spun her head towards Endeavor, who seemed to only grow more pissed when the spotlight was shined down on him. Not good. Calm down, we have to calmly figure out which one of us is actually Orochimaru. Best Jeanist stated, since Ryukyu was defending herself in an overly emotional way. Best Jeanist looked towards Endeavor anyway though. Emotional, but she's not wrong. You're now a suspect, you have a track record of being overly violent with your enemies. Orochimaru with your body and memories would be able to mask his own evil deeds very well. Best Jeanist pointed out as he tried to wrap up Endeavor. Endeavor burnt the fibers to cinders the second they tried to wrap around him, glaring darkly at Best Jeanist when he did so. I would have killed myself before letting Orochimaru take my body. I say it's you, Best Jeanist, you're quick to point out and restrain everybody else. What is to say Orochimaru isn't using your cool head and intelligence to make you seem like the real deal? Endeavor started to stomp towards Best Jeanist, his fists catching fire with heat so intense everyone in the room could feel it. All Might shifted around nervously. Orochimaru, by revealing this, was playing a mind game. Trusted comrades, in an instant, no longer trusted anyone amongst themselves anymore. Knowing that Orochimaru could be anyone in the room, and believably act like that as well, meant that nobody could afford to act together anymore. My quirk is weak, it's only my intelligence and training that made my quirk useful. Orochimaru wouldn't want my body. Bullshit. If this bastard gets your memories and body, then he doesn't have to train to use your quirk, and he can use it as well as you. That means that you don't have a good reason not to be Orochimaru either. Mirko shouted as she pointed at Best Jeanist. Naruto grinned. Hey, Oroki-chan, and heroes here, you can play these mind games all you want, but you do know that the real Kurama isn't even among us, right? Naruto called out to everyone in the room. What? Everyone asked. No, seriously, everyone asked that question in complete unison as they looked towards the so-called Kurama. Naruto's body started to melt into a white sludge, Himiko Toga's face being the first thing to be revealed as the sludge landed on the floor. She was completely naked moments later, her hands covering her breasts and lower region as her disguise completely melted away. She was giving a demented grin as she looked all around the room. That's righty. Kurama-chan asked me to come here and use the last of his blood that I had, to transform into a copy of him. Oh, I'm naked, but my phone is over here. Toga scurried towards the old teacher's desk, and she pulled her hidden phone out of the desk. She ducked down below the desk so that nobody could see her naked body anymore, and made a phone call. Calling Kurama. He tricked all of us, that villain. Endeavor whispered in barely restrained rage. They were protecting him, and he tricked them all. Hey Oroki-chan, guess somehow Toga was put into a situation where she revealed herself. Whoops, sorry heroes, did I never mention that I wasn't going to actually go along with any of your plan? Yeah, turns out I don't trust more than half of you to not backstab me. Naruto's voice, the real Naruto, spoke through the phone. Grrrrrr. Admittedly, I planned on capturing him when this was over with. I wanted to use this as a chance to get him to drop his guard, and get him after we got Orochimaru. Best Jeanist spoke truthfully, understanding where Kurama was coming from. Seeing as multiple of them, including the growling Endeavor and the frowning Ryukyu, who seemed to be experiencing a silent fury at the moment, had all planned on taking both him and Orochimaru down, Kurama's choice was a well-thought one. You bastard, we're heroes, I hate working together with people, and even I was going to let Kurama go after this. Mirko seemed shocked and disdainful of everyone in the room. All Might, you too? Mirko looked over at All Might, who was showing shame on his face. Yes, but only because Kurama's potential as a hero, if he were to get outed as a villain, he would have no choice but to become a hero to avoid harsh penalties. It was both for his good, and everyone else as well. All Might as well admitted to planning on capturing Naruto when all was said and done. Naruto was young, he could still become a hero by law. How does it feel, Orochimaru? I figured you were a sly little bitch of a snake, and of course, what you didn't know is that my master knew he was going to die when he told us your weaknesses. The entire time he was talking to us, and looking at those naked women, he was sending me a message. Did you know that one of those women had a telepathy quirk? What? Mirko was confused now. When did this happen? Jiraiya had told them everything he knew. When could he have sent a unique message to Naruto? On the false bottom glass of the hot springs, that woman was using her hands to subtly show me numbers, and she used her ass to write the kanji form of a name. That night, I did a little bit of code cracking. You see, my master and I have a secret code using words and lines from his books. He sent me a message that you were aware of our plans and traps, so while everyone else was getting ready to trap you, thinking you were arrogant enough to throw yourself into a trap, I made a different plan. How does it feel, Orochi-chan? How does it feel knowing that you were outsmarted by the #1 villain, and your clumsy, goofy, weak and quirkless old teammate? Naruto's taunting voice could be heard on the speakerphone option throughout the entire room, with everyone having a different reaction. You were staring at that woman's ass? Mirko had a stupid reaction, because she was stupid, but everyone else had a different reaction. Kurama, if Orochimaru were to take over one of us, which one would have take over? All Might asked as he looked at the phone, as it switched to a video call. Naruto, in costume, was grinning as he gave the phone a peace sign. Well duh, Orochimaru isn't any of you. Why would he bother, when he could just say he is in one of you, and have you all fight yourselves? But don't worry, Orochi-chan is with you guys right now, and he is so pissed. After all, he was outsmarted by an idiot like me. If an idiot can outsmart you, guess you're not a real genius, Orochimaru. Whoops, I mean Yamada no Orochi lol, if you even deserve to be called by that name. Anyway, since you killed my master, I'm going to piss on your master's grave. Naruto stated as he showed the image of a gravestone that was behind him, and he had a wicked grin on his face. Pfft, for a little bastard, he's got style. Endeavor snorted when he realized that one of his worst enemies was getting humiliated by a teenage boy, who was doing his very best to taunt Orochimaru in the worst ways possible. Orochimaru came out of hiding. He looked absolutely vivid as he stared at the phone screen, undoing the transformation that made him look like one of the school's desks. His eyes were narrowed dangerously. I am a genius unlike any other, and you will not piss on my master's grave. He is your master's master, who you gained your villain name from. You will not disrespect him. Oh, trust me, this is way less disrespectful than what you've done to his teachings apparently. You've become a slave to your quirk, and villains are supposed to be free. I think your master would gladly accept this piss, because I'm showing off my freedom. Naruto unzipped his pants with a grin spreading wider under his mask. Orochimaru's eyes became even more livid. Wait, who is holding the phone? You better not be showing some other girl your dick other than me, you little. I'm supposed to be the only one who gets to see that. Mirko got angry for the wrong reason too, when she realized that Naruto had neither hand on the phone. She blinked, before she blushed when she realized that she was saying something stupid during such a serious moment. Pissing had never caused more tension. Orochimaru looked like a bomb that could go off at any moment, while everyone else was frozen when a strange feeling came over them. Paralyzing fear. I'm going to subject you to an utter hell after I take your body. Your mind will face endless misery and suffering as I break your spirit completely if you continue with what you are doing. Rhea. Orochimaru broke through the nearest wall as he rushed his way towards where his master was buried, where Naruto was, and where he was going to unleash all of his fury. Naruto was literally pissing on his master's grave right now. Nice dick though. Toga commented as she turned the phone so that she was the only one looking at the video. Orochimaru was out of the room, and off after Naruto, and everyone could breathe easier now that the oppressive air in the room was gone. With Naruto. Kid, you might be relieving your bladder, but you have no idea how therapeutic this is for me watching you torment Orochimaru emotionally, and cause him to fly into a rage. Nana stated as she turned off Naruto's phone. He had to explain how to do that for her. She was out of the hospital, since she was the only one that Naruto trusted at the moment not to backstab him. She wasn't legally a hero anymore, and her quirk had vanished to the point of becoming nearly gone. Years of time, without Orochimaru protecting her quirk, quickly passed as the flames of One for All quickly died inside of her. Not just One for All. Even her original quirk was disappearing too, meaning that once her quirk was gone, she would never be able to become a hero again. Her quirks were what allowed her to become a great hero, and while she knew she would lose one for all, losing her original quirk as well had been somewhat of a downer for her. Yeah, you mind not watching? This is actually super embarrassing, and I really do feel bad about this. Naruto stated, now allowed to be honest since the phone was not recording and sending this to Orochimaru. Whipping his dick out wasn't as easy as you would think, when you knew that you had an audience watching you. Pop Step landed nearby, sweating bullets. She had a different case in her hands. I gave the thought the fake case, got the real case here. Pop Step stated as she lifted up the case for Naruto to take. She hated being involved in this plan at all, and how Naruto made a show of her giving Toga the fake case just to make Orochimaru believe that Toga was the real Naruto. She had to hop and jump faster than ever before to make it to where Naruto is. It had been fast and scary, and she had even hitched a ride on top of a dangerously fast speeding car just to make it as fast as she could. Aya, put that thing away? Pop Step shouted and covered her face with her hands, when she realized that Naruto's dick was out. When Naruto quickly did that with a red face, she uncovered her face and gave a short shiver. Anyway, what was in that case? Pop Step quickly changed the subject. Toga's case was far too heavy for it to be empty. Insurance, you see, I talked to this weird guy who gave me my clothes, and he got me in contact with some weird doctor dude. That case had a little surprise for the heroes in that room, and Toga. Naruto grinned, since he had managed to get the more dangerous people to him personally, all in the same room with the thing that he had asked for. Of course, he owed a favor to the League of Villains, dumb name, he would have to say, in exchange for what he had asked for. One favor to the League of Villains didn't seem so bad. You're not going to hurt Toshi, are you? Nana was serious instantly. With the heroes. By the way, Kurama told me that when Orochimaru escaped, that he wanted me to use the backup plan. He said the only way for us to defeat Orochimaru was for us to use this. Toga stated as she got the case out again. Now she was dressed in her normal clothes. She had been told to open the case and make it seem like she took something out, but she opened the case again and this time took the false bottom out of it. Apparently, he wanted to draw Orochimaru away from all of us, so we could use this. It will give our quirks a power-up, it's called trigger or something. We just breath in this gas, and we become strong enough to fight. Toga stated as she started to pass small gas masks out to everyone, since they were all needed for the fight apparently. A power-up, this bastard played Orochimaru like a fool. Endeavor took the mask, and happily put it over his mouth. A power-up, and the chance to kill Orochimaru? Sign him up. I knew that he wasn't double-crossing us, he's a very honest villain. Ryukyu stated with a huff. She remembered when he gave her a blanket, because she was affected by the cold weather. A horrible person wouldn't do that for her, so he must have good in him. This was all a plow to take down an enraged Orochimaru. All Might put on his mask, and Ryukyu followed after. Naruto slid across the ground he landed on, skating across Orochimaru's body with his hand and touching another dozen snakes. Music, so you've gone insane then, fear really drives a man wild. Orochimaru laughed as he snapped at Naruto, and swung his tail towards the villain. Naruto flipped it, dodging by a hair's breadth. Naruto continued with his momentum and jumped into the air, landing upside down on a moving train as it sped away. Orochimaru gave chase after Naruto, as he jumped on top of the train, and waved his hand towards Orochimaru. Poor Orochimaru, you're really a sad creature, you've become a true slave to your own quirk. Look at me, I don't let my quirk rule my desires. You've based your entire life on what your quirk does, you've willingly surrendered all of the freedom of villainy to a prison of your own making, you're really just like those heroes. Naruto mocked as Orochimaru got onto the train tracks and chased after the train, quickly approaching it as went towards a tunnel. Orochimaru, other than mental warfare, fought just like the heroes he captured. Orochimaru only got more angry though. Fight me. No, I don't think I will. That just doesn't sound fun. If I fought you, I might lose. How about a kiss? Little bitty kiss gonna make the bad boo-boo on your feelings feel better? Naruto asked as he surprised Orochimaru by jumping off the train and land on the side of the tunnel. Orochimaru's massive form made it impossible for him to stop quickly enough, and his head ended up following after the train into the tunnel. Naruto jumped onto Orochimaru and started to run down the middle of his trail, using body of his hands to touch as many snakes as possible. This entire time, he planned on fighting Orochimaru. How could he think so stupidly? The only reason I beat so many heroes is because I never once actually tried to fight them. I should have just done this from the beginning. I can't believe I was going to ignore who I've been this entire time, just because I was scared. Naruto thought as he felt something great fill him up. He didn't know what it was, but it was something he had been missing for the past few days, something that had been what made it fun to be a villain for him. A spark that he didn't know he had lost when Orochimaru showed up and made him a target. Orochimaru broke the tunnel that had him trapped, and Naruto tossed the freed victims down towards bushes and trees for them to land on and in. Their knocked-out states would help them take less injury from the short falls, and he made sure none of them landed on their heads. You can't dodge me forever. I will possess you. Orochimaru got closer to the peak of his rage. Naruto blew a kiss at him. Like I said earlier, ass, exit only. I don't know what you and the previous Kurama villain like to do together, but I'm straight, not that there is anything wrong with being gay, just not my thing. Naruto saw a truck pass underneath the bridge holding the train tracks. Naruto jumped down and landed on top of the truck. Wow, he recognized the truck driver. Kurama? What are the odds you would land on my truck again? Oh, I haven't seen you since I beat Ryukyu. I'm being chased by another big monster guy, mind giving this villain a short ride? Naruto asked as he rode the side of the truck, talking to the driver with a cocky, masked smile. He gestured to Orochimaru as he shattered the concrete that he traveled on, chasing after the truck with more fury. Orochimaru got faster with each body whose weight he lost from his form, but he also got weaker. It was a dangerous trade-off. If you want, just take a really sharp right at the next stop. Naruto corrected himself as he prepared to jump forward. Got it. When Orochimaru got within biting distance, the truck driver took a sharp right just as Naruto jumped forwards. He used his forward momentum to increase the speed and power of his jump so much, that when he landed he was a good 100 meters away from Orochimaru, who had a massive chunk of concrete in his jaws. He snapped his jaws shut and destroyed the concrete he was holding. Naruto started to dance in the most smug way possible. Stop playing around, you think this is a game? Orochimaru's growl was threatening. It was honestly terrifying. Sure, I can play a game with you, it's not like you are a challenge or anything. Guess you're so much like a hero, a real villain like me doesn't have a problem. Stop. Cute, you're triggered. Naruto jumped on top of Orochimaru's head when he charged forward, and Naruto started to touch each and every snake that was around Orochimaru's head. Orochimaru hissed in agony, and tossed Naruto off of him as dozens of heroes and quirk users started to fall to the ground below Orochimaru. Naruto landed on his feet nearby, and he winced in pain. Naruto started to run towards Orochimaru as he slowed down, and he turned to face Naruto again, all the snakes around his head having died. Most of his once horrifyingly scary body were now composed of dead snakes. I'll kill you. Ha! Looks like you've finally reached the boiling point there. Fine by me, I wanted to try out this special move anyway. Naruto reached behind him, and he pulled out a needle, before he threw it towards Orochimaru. Used needle attack. Hope you get a disease from this. Naruto saw the needle stab Orochimaru, and he jumped up in the air and landed on the needle foot first, injecting all of the drug inside of it into Orochimaru. Naruto jumped off and struck a pose when Orochimaru stopped moving. Orochimaru exploded. Holy shit! Naruto turned back and saw hundreds of knocked-out hero bodies landing on the ground all around him, eyes widened when he saw what had happened. I thought he would lose control of his stolen quirks, sure, but that trigger would make sense. After all, Trigger was made by villains. Nothing is better suited to take down a fake villain like you than something made by real villains. Naruto stated as he looked towards the middle of the bloody explosion of dead snakes. Orochimaru was dead. Eva? Oh, never mind, come on now then, Oroki-chan. Let's see what you can do, I can still go on if you want. Naruto saw an elderly man standing, with looks somewhat similar to the Orochimaru he had seen before. He was ready to keep fighting if he needed, or rather to keep running away from a fight. How dare you keep using his words against me? I'm a real villain. I seek the freedom that becoming the strongest. I will be the very strongest. I will attain all quirks, and I will gain the freedom my master sought, all these years. I won't let you make them go to waste. What? Naruto asked with a tilted head. I don't know whose words you're talking about, but a real villain doesn't need to seek freedom. Just by being villains, we're more free than the heroes we face. I'm not ever fighting for freedom. I'm fighting to enjoy the freedom I have. Naruto rubbed the back of his head when Orochimaru stopped completely. Orochimaru was frozen in place by those words. You've been talking like Master Kurama, you must have been doing that to mock me, to upset me. Sorry, but I really only know a little bit about your master, anything I said that sounded like him, was just me stating my own beliefs. Not my fault if you took them too personally, and got triggered. Naruto only knew a little of what the original villain Kurama, whose name he inherited, had believed in. Naruto mostly wanted to fuck with Orochimaru in the head, because of his own desire for a little revenge for his killed master. I was the strongest, nobody could defeat me in a fight. Duh, so I didn't fight you. I'm not really a fighter by nature. When I beat heroes, I do it non-violently for a reason, because I've never really trained that hard to fight people. You think I become the #1 villain because of my fighting ability? Naruto asked Orochimaru with a confused tone. He thought that everyone knew that his style of beating heroes was allowing them to beat themselves as he manipulated their emotions, taunted them, and forced them to make a mistake he could use against them to poison them. Orochimaru took a shaky step forward. He made a shake come out of his sleeves, and he made them snake go towards Naruto. I can still take you. I'll take you, and get the freedom that you have. Orochimaru weakly stated as his snake latched onto Naruto, biting his arm. Naruto didn't bother fighting back. Orochimaru had gone from anger to denial of his loss. You're blinded by strength, did you forget? I'm poisonous. Naruto stated as the snake started to die, and the death started to spread towards Orochimaru as well. Naruto did flinch when the snake bit him several more times, as it struggled to fight death. I've used so much poison, that my skin is coated in it too thickly, did you forget? Naruto asked as the poison finally reached Orochimaru. Orochimaru collapsed to his knees. Naruto didn't pity Orochimaru. You've damned hundreds to suffer for eternity inside of you, what I've give you is just a taste of their suffering. You deserve this, you deserve to die a weak, old man who has no loved ones to mourn your loss. I am not going to miss you, and nobody in this world will miss you. You will be forgotten, not even a memory one day. Naruto walked towards Orochimaru, as he gave the man nothing but things that put the fear of death into him. No, please, save me. I can't save you, I can't touch you without speeding up your death. Naruto stated as Orochimaru started to convulse on the ground in front of him. The man was on death's door. His death was truly a promised thing at this point, and it didn't matter if Naruto wanted to save the man or not. He couldn't touch anyone without killing them, or be touched by anyone, until he had washed the poison from his body. Save me. I'm afraid. I don't want to die. Orochimaru was looking up at Naruto, as if he could save him or had a desire to save him. Orochimaru was a man who feared death more than anything else it would seem. The man was a genius, but because of his genius, it was he who feared death more than the normal person. That fear controlled him more than it controlled other people, and now that he had lost control over his ability to avoid death, he was losing his ability to control his very fear itself. Now I pity you, you kill people, but you're afraid of death. I would never take a person's life, unless I was ready to have my life taken. Master Kurama, please tell me it's okay, please tell me the afterlife isn't scary. Orochimaru died. Death is scary, of course it is, but what is scarier than death, is losing what is truly important to you. You lost that a long time ago, Orochimaru. When you lost what is truly precious, death becomes the scariest thing. Oh well, I have to go home anyway, it's late and I'm tired. Naruto stated as he rubbed the back of his head, annoyed that he hadn't realized all of this much sooner. 5 thuds hit the ground behind him. He turned around and looked to see 5 of the strongest heroes of Japan standing there, looking extremely out of control with black tongues in their mouths. Cool. Ma. It's never going to be easy, it is. Oh well, I don't have all night, you should be able to withstand a little fatal poison with Trigger doing this to you guys. The next morning. Does anyone remember what happened to us last night? Mirko asked as she looked at the 4 that was connected to her arm, she being strapped to a bed with All Might, Endeavor, Ryukyu, and Best Jeanist in beds lined up next to her. All she remembered was her taking that mask that Kurama had sent to them, to power them up, and then she blacked out after that. And why do I feel like I should be? Mirko trailed off, since for some reason she believed that she should be having sex with somebody right now. She had a sense of victory, and a sense of loss. Yamada no Orochi, a legendary villain who has claimed hundreds of victims, found dead after eyewitnesses reported him chasing after Kurama. Has the #1 villain turned into a hero, or did Orochi bite off more than he could chew? Orochimaru died, and none of us even remember what happened. All Might wasn't sure how to feel about this. He remembered that his master was with them again, and all of Orochimaru's hundreds of victims were now patients at the hospital. He kind of remembered Kurama, but some of the details about Kurama were so hazy that he couldn't remember anything else about it. He's really dead. Endeavor didn't know what to say, seeing the news. Why wasn't I wearing panties when they found us? Ryukyu asked in a deadpan voice, with a laptop sitting in her lap. She was searching the internet for her panties, seeing if anyone was selling them. She could hazard a guess at who had stolen her panties from her, since the others had parts of their uniforms stolen from them as well. Kurama. Best Jeanist and All Might commented together. Only Kurama would have done that. But why do I feel like I'm forgetting something about Kurama, and things concerning him? All Might thought with a furrowed brow. With Naruto. Jiraiya was a pervert among perverts, but he was my master. It was his money that funded the places here that allow villains a safe haven from heroes. It may not be much, but I hope all of you will remember him as, not a hero, but a hero to villains. He was there when we needed him, which is why I really wish more than 2 of you showed up. Naruto stated with a deadpan as he looked at the underwhelming crowd of 2 people who had showed up to the bar when he kaye them out. His arm that the snake had bitten several times was wrapped up in bandages, though sometimes the wound would open and he would bleed through them. It was still worth the price that he paid for getting justice for his master and all of those that had died. He was such a good way to earn money. He was the most frequent patron of my bar. Okay, you 2 idiots can go home, service over, the mood is honestly ruined. Jiraiya is spitting at both of you from the afterlife. Naruto face palmed as he spoke, just shocked at how even the people of the red light district who benefited from him, showed him no respect even at his surprise memorial service. Naruto groaned when he felt his arm throb with pain. He really hoped this would heal quickly. Chapter 26. And thus, we are hereby happy to inform everyone that thanks to Kurama, the dangerous villain known as Yamada no Orochi has been defeated and hundreds of innocents have been saved. As more information about Orochi is being revealed, we will have more information for you. Kurama, huh? Well, that's pretty cool of the guy to fight on the side of good. Namuri stated as she cooked breakfast, a happy smile on her face. She had not really gotten involved with the Orochimaru incident at all, since her battle-related abilities weren't rated high enough to warrant her being allowed to participate. She had been worried when Naruto didn't come home one night, but he had sent her a text saying he was staying with a friend because he lost track of time before the curfew kicked in. Thankfully, with the super dangerous villain defeated, the curfew for civilians had been lifted for everyone other than young minors, who had a curfew anyway. In other news, among the hundreds of victims found, more than 237 villains have been identified and placed in a secure hospital where they will await trial for their past misdeeds. Many more heroes have been found, and are being reunited with their families or descendants of their families. Damn it, stupid. Naruto scratched as the bandages on his arm, since the snake bites had yet to heal. He had been able to explain that to Namuri easily enough as just him visiting a snake god shrine with a friend, and him getting bit by a wild snake that had mistaken him for an actual toad due to his scent. It will heal soon enough, anyway, now that things are going to go back to normal. I was thinking. UA's school sports festival will be coming up soon. The general studies, hero, support, and business classes will all be attending it, and you and I can do some training together to get you ready for it. Namuri talked to Naruto without looking at him. She didn't want to pressure him into wanting to become a hero, but she wanted him to enjoy the sports festival and do his best to show off the latent talents that she could tell he had. While all students would be participating, only 40 students would make it to round 2, and only a handful of students would compete in round 3. She would love to see Naruto make it to round 3. Isn't the sports festival just a way for UA to show off the hero course to Japan, since it is broadcast on TV? I don't see why I should try. I mean, it would be better if just students from the hero course got to show off. Some guy like me who isn't aiming to be a hero doesn't really need the attention. Naruto was given a plate with a good breakfast on it as Namuri finished cooking for the 2 of them. While, before Orochimaru, he and Namuri had been working towards some quirk training and the sports festival, now that a threat on the level of Orochimaru had been revealed, the nation was still shaken up. It would be best to give them hope for the future, but focusing on showing off the future generation of heroes. Heroes who would be the ones to one day defeat Orochimaru-level threats if they ever showed up. Him stopping Orochimaru was a one-time thing. He wasn't a hero and this wasn't what he wanted to do all the time. Yeah, he would jump in and save a person's life if he was there and he was able to do something, but he wasn't going to go out of his way to be a hero either. Orochimaru had been targeting him directly this time. Future villains wouldn't be doing that. Well, you know, a lot of children love watching it with their parents, or caretakers. I was thinking. Namuri stopped herself, before she gave a sly giggle when she realized that what she planned on doing would be best left as a surprise. She didn't want Naruto to know, so she wouldn't even hint at it. Naruto stared at her. You're not planning something incredibly stupid, are you? Naruto asked her with a dull tone. She had something stupid planned. -2 weeks later. Yuri not planning something incredibly stupid, are you? Momo asked as she looked at Naruto with a dull tone in her voice, her eyes deadpanned as she saw Naruto grinning to himself in the lunchroom. She sat down at the same table as him, because after 2 weeks with 2 more weeks to the sports festival, she hadn't gotten much time to try and expose him to the world at large as Kurama yet. She had also planned on punching him for letting such an insane girl loose on her, but she had quickly realized that what the doppelganger woman did was not something that Naruto would ask the girl to do. Naruto didn't seem the type to ask a girl to molest another girl so heavily, meaning the girl had acted on her own without Naruto's approval there. If she wanted to be angry with Naruto, she would have to be more angry with herself for falling for the woman's trap and seductions. "Sup Muffintop, how's it hanging?" Naruto greeted her with a grin. She cleared her throat. "What are you planning for the sports festival, Naruto?" Momo asked him as she pulled her chopsticks apart. "Might as well be direct." "Nothing." "You're lying." "No, seriously, I don't have any plans. Nem. Midnight has been keeping me so busy with her insisting on training me, I haven't had the time to make any big plans. Anyway, wasn't going to anyway. A ton of heroes show up and watch the sports festival live, literally hundreds of pro heroes in one location, not a good place to try anything." Naruto deadpanned to her, since while he was cocky and arrogant, he wasn't stupid enough to show up as Kurama in front of hundreds of heroes who were after his ass. Kurama. Number 1 villain. Villain who defeated the top 10. Villain who defeated the most dangerous villain. Villain who had never been caught, never been defeated every hero who faced him. If he showed up, then hundreds of heroes would jump at the chance to take him down and earn fame for themselves. Not even his poison could take out hundreds of pro heroes with different quirks and abilities easily. He wasn't that cocky. "Oh, you're not lying." Momo blinked and realized that no villain in their right mind would even try to show up where hundreds or even thousands of pros would be located. It was a literally villain career suicide. "Sorry, I just assumed that, you being you would do something. So, how goes training with— Wait, why is she training you? You're stronger than her." Momo asked with a questioning stare at him. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "I mean, I really don't use most of my quirks traits when I don't really fight, but when I do what I do, I don't use the toad stuff. I use the poison, and since Midnight doesn't know I plan on losing in the first round, gotta at least dash." "You're giving up before you even begin?" Momo asked with a tilted head. He was just going to throw the competition in round 1? "I mean, she let some details slip on accident. Turns out round 3 is a battle tournament, and with all the rules, I'm at a real disadvantage, considering I can't use my usual winning strategy, and Mina has already defeated me, can't exact dash." "I see, the third event is a tournament battle, so one-on-one fights, in brackets, meaning event 1 will trim down the numbers, and event 2 will trim them down to a tournament easy size. Anyway, why would you just give up?" Momo interrupted Naruto to analyze his words, and he just patiently waited for her to finish talking, so that he could talk again. He looked at her, and she blinked. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. You did it twice. Anyway, the sports festival is a chance for UA to show off its future heroes to Japan. This is a really important chance for you heroes to show off, and after this, you guys will get to intern, and for that I have a lot of plans to screw with you guys, but considering how the Orochimaru stuff went down, I felt it was better for everyone if I didn't mess with this event." Naruto admitted to her, and she showed some visible surprise when she heard his words. That was a well-thought-out, and emotionally thoughtful, reason for him not messing with the heroes during the sports festival. It also showed something that she respected about him. He did not hate heroes. He was a villain who didn't hate heroes, and instead held a healthy respect for them to the point that he wasn't above helping them when they needed it. It was well known that he gave Ryukyu a blanket when she was suffering from the cold. It was known he moved MT Lady to a rooftop to keep her secret identity from being exposed by reporters. He messed with heroes all the time, but he never did anything actually evil or hurtful to them, other than damaging their pride, but that was minor. "You might be a bad guy, but you really are a good guy." Momo spoke with her small smile gracing her face. Yes, this was part of the reason civilians loved Kurama so much. He had such a great charisma about him, that inspired others to want to believe in him and place their bets on him. He attracted the attention of others, and even his evil actions held no real malice to them. "Anyway, it isn't like there is a reason for me to try that hard, it isn't like there is a prize dash. Attention students, but in celebration for a great villain being defeated, this year there will be a prize for the first place winner of the sports festival. The winner will receive a prize of 10 million yen donation to the charity of their choice." That was a good reason for him to try hard. Chapter 27. Quirks. The use of one's quirk was innate, something that a person just naturally knew how to use in some way, shape, or form. If you were able to shoot lasers from your eyes, you didn't need training to know how to do it. Your body would know how to do it by itself, and you just had to have the knowledge that you had that ability. That was how it was for those who had quirks that could be turned on and off at will, quirks where you could do a special power like controlling an element or shooting a projectile. Quirks could be broken down into types. Emitter. Quirks that release or alter things around them, be it producing flames, controlling gas, or doing something elemental in nature. To train emitter quirks, what you needed to do was train the part of the body that controlled the quirk's ability. If you used your hands, you trained your hands and trained your quirk factor in your hands. The easiest quirk to train physically. Transformation. The quirk that changes the body of the user. The easiest quirk to train in terms of thought process, you just needed to train your body's transformed state by increasing how long you could transform, or train the way that they transform. Sometimes it was even as easy as just changing the way they would eat. While it was the quirk to train, transformation quirks were less common. Mutant. A quirk that was always active, changing the very way the human body naturally functioned. You could have arms that could produce special abilities, or you could have a body that could naturally produce the abilities of certain animals. It was the hardest quirk to train for those who had the abilities of certain animals, because while quirks themselves were innate knowledge, with mutant-type quirks, sometimes you actually needed to be aware of aspects of your quirk that you can and cannot use. So, what do you know you can do with your quirk? Namiri asked Naruto as she had a notebook down in front of her, to write down anything that she could use to help train his quirk. She had an emitter quirk. He had a mutant quirk. There was a very large difference in how the two quirk types functioned, and where all of her abilities came naturally to her and all she needed to do to train was take hot baths and practice skin care to open her pores. Naruto needed a vastly different type of training in order to awaken certain aspects of his quirk he might not be fully aware of. It was perhaps the biggest disadvantage of them not being related by blood, their lack of understanding of the very nature of each other's quirks. I can make poison come out of my skin. I'm able to store things in my stomach, and spit my stomach out. I can stick to walls and ceilings, and I can partially breathe through my skin when I'm in water. I know I can change my skin's color to match my surroundings. My singing voice has a strong hypnotic effect on girls, but it isn't really effective on guys. I can change my gender at will, and I have enhanced strength and speed. Naruto explained the various aspects of his quirk that he was aware of. These were things that he had heard his father was able to do, and some of them he had done himself. Your girl form is smoking, by the way. Namiri added with a nod of her head. She had been the one to suggest Naruto try and see if he could change genders, since toads and frogs in the wild had shown that ability. Naruto was against using the ability, as a proud male, but she wanted to open the possibilities of him exploring the female body and gaining some lesbian experience. She knew that she had gained some experiences when she had been going through school, experiencing her youth with people she bonded with in some form or another. By the way, Naruto was sitting on the ceiling. Namiri was laying on her back as she watched Naruto do reverse sit-ups, using nothing but his abs and his hands that were allowing him to stick to the ceiling. She was being very careful to avoid his sweat as it dripped off of his body, since it had a very slight poison aspect to it that was nowhere near as powerful as the poison he chose to secrete. Naruto's poison sweat was a 2 on a scale to 10. Naruto's potent poison could range anywhere between 1 and 10 depending on how dangerous he wanted the poison to be. Can you puff your body up to look bigger? Namiri asked, and Naruto had to pause, before he dropped from the ceiling and landed on his feet. I have no clue. Naruto took a deep breath, and he held it. His muscles started to expand all over his body, going from his normal lean frame to a far more muscular form. He ripped his shirt and his pants, leaving only extremely stretched underwear behind as he tore through the clothes like a hot knife through butter. Namiri was a little shocked, but for Naruto, once he learned that he might be able to use such an ability, it was as if his body just knew how he could do it out of instinct. Holy crap! Namiri jumped up in shock when she saw his muscles change shape so drastically. Naruto had a lean, but muscular physique normally, but right now he had a similar muscular structure to All Might himself, though his muscles were scaled down to match his height a little more. All the same, while his bone structure stayed the same, his inflated muscles were large enough that his bicep was about as thick as her thigh was, and she had pretty thick thighs. Naruto let out the breath he was holding, and his muscles shrank back down to normal. Looks like this ability is related to my stomach and lungs. As long as I hold my breath, I can take on a muscle form. Anything else? Naruto walked towards Namiri, since she had a computer next to her. She was looking online for unique toad traits, and common toad traits, looking for any abilities that he hadn't shown to see if he was capable of doing them himself. This training was more so testing the limits of what his quirk could do, before training his body any further than they had been training it. Can you take on that dash? You are my mother by law, and incest, even with no blood relations, is still very much wrong. Naruto deadpanned at her when she perved on his muscle form a little. She shook herself from her stupor, and regained her normal senses. She nodded her head. Sorry, I'm still a hot-blooded woman, anyway, says here some toads will regrow lost limbs if they were exposed to estrogen. Namuri commented and asked, before she saw how pale Naruto looked at that question. Yeah, they better not test to see if he could regrow lost body parts by giving him hormone shots, since that was a rather unpleasant thought on what would happen if he couldn't do that. It was overall just not a very good idea, one that both of them didn't like the thought of. Can we not? Yeah, you're right, so, are you any stronger in your muscle form? Namuri looked at Naruto with some intrigue. This wasn't so she could perv on his muscle form, she honestly wanted to know if he had any stat increases. Nope. Wait, that was a really quick answer. Namuri was a little shocked at how quick the response to her question came, since he didn't even know he had that ability until now. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders, since he could just tell the form didn't make him any stronger. It was his quirk, and even though he just learned about that power, he could already tell that he didn't have much of a power increase, if any at all. It was innate for him to know this. Namuri frowned and palmed the side of her head in thought, trying to think how she could help him training in a way that was unique for his quirk. She didn't have the toad quirk, she didn't even have a mutant-type quirk. It was hard for her to understand how his knowledge on his quirk worked, and how it worked in general since she wasn't a scientist or doctor who studied quirks in a serious environment. Knock, knock, knock. Door's not locked, come on in. Namuri called out, and Naruto looked at her like she was an idiot as he grabbed one of her sweaters from the carpet and put it on. She seemed to forget that his body was very exposed at the moment, with his underwear stretched and threatening to fall off at any given moment. He put the sweater on just in time. The door opened, and it was somebody that Naruto didn't recognize in the slightest. Oh, wait, never mind, he had seen this girl before. She wore perhaps the sexiest underwear in the school. Something he recognized from the time he switched her school uniform with a boy from the other hero course. Setsuna Tokage. Midnight Sensei, since the sports festival is coming up, oh, sorry, it seems another student is here, didn't mean to interrupt any sexy activities you two might be dash. This is my son, nothing sexual is happening at all. Minus 30 minutes later. So, her quirk lets her split her body into pieces. Those pieces can levitate, and they can come back together. If they stay away from her body too long, they deactivate and her body regrows what she lost. That quirk is super dangerous to me. Naruto thought to himself as Setsuna talked to Namuri about some issues she was having with her training. She had a lean and muscular body, but a very sexually attractive one to add on. Lizard-like sharp and jagged teeth, with long and wavy green hair, and sharp eyes. She kind of reminded him of Momo. Her quirk had a severe type advantage against his poison, if she ever encountered it, since even if he touched a part of her body that was split, the rest of her body would be unaffected and she could regrow back the parts he touched. Overall, if she became a pro hero, battling against her would be one hell of a challenge for him with her quirk's natural advantage to his own quirk. It would be a battle of skill and stamina if he ever went against her. Well, can you leave the room, Naruto-kun? Setsuna asked as she looked at Naruto, who raised an eyebrow, before he shrugged. Namuri raised an eyebrow at the same time as him, but she nodded her head. Naruto-kun, do I know her from anywhere else? Naruto tried to think of why she would use such an affectionate way of referring to him, or she was just being a high school girl and using an affectionate name with a boy she didn't hate. Either way, if she wanted to be alone while she asked Namuri for help, he was fine with that. I'm going to get changed, and go hang out with a friend of mine at her house. Naruto stated as he thought about Pop. He needed to thank her for helping during the Orochimaru issue, and he needed to thank Nana as well since she had given him direct assistance. Later. Come on. It will look super awesome, just wear it once when you get chased by a hero. You know you want to. I regret being thankful to your help. Naruto deadpanned as he looked at the blatant advertisement that she wanted him to wear. It was a shirt with her name, face, and of course a link to her social media accounts on the back of it. It was blatant advertisement towards her, to the point that it was purely stupid looking. At the same time, he owed her a big one. You owe dash. Yeah, whatever, I'll wear it the next time Kurama shows up. My arm has healed up, so I can go and do some villain work again. Naruto looked down at his freshly healed arm, since it had been preventing Kurama from making any appearances the last few weeks. It wouldn't be good if people saw Kurama's arm bandaged up, and his own arm bandaged up, and put two and two together. Naruto grinned. He had the perfect target planned out. Chapter 28. Damn you, Kurama? I'm going to catch you. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, bun. Naruto teased Mirko as held her leotard up, leaving her naked for the most part if you didn't count the accessories of her costume. He had a towel tossed on top of her breasts and crotch, since he had finally defeated her in a spot where she wouldn't be seen naked on national TV. Seriously, how are you still single with that rocking body? Naruto teased her, calling her back to an earlier comment he had made to her, months previously. Mirko growled at him. Her tongue had just returned back to normal. After 2 weeks she and the rest of those who had been affected by whatever it was Kurama did to them to erase their memories, after it had been black for a while. Now that her tongue was back to normal, she was out of the hospital and had returned back to hero duty, only for Kurama to appear right before her and taunt her. I'm going to catch you, and then I'm going to take you for a ride. You better get a good look at my body, because one day, it will be the only woman's body you'll be seeing naked for days at a time. I will make you submit to me 10 times for every one time you've beaten me. Mirko tried to make any movements, but his poison was still in her body very potently. After I've beaten your face in, that is. Mirko added, since she was still going to pound his face in for beating her so much. Naruto chuckled. And there is why you are single. Hips don't lie, and your hips look dangerous. You know, most men aren't attracted to women who are going to abuse their dick dash. Later that day. Thank you, Mistress Midnight. Naruto regretted stating what he stated to Mirko earlier that day, since now that he was delivering Midnight some documents to her office he was seeing something he didn't want to see. That wasn't to say he was seeing sex happen right now, he wasn't seeing her having sex, but what he was seeing wasn't much better. She was but naked, with a bathrobe at least, though the bathrobe was open at the front, sitting in a chair in the middle of a room with a tablet in her hands. She was surrounded by young men in butler suits, her sidekicks and assistants who worked for her. One of which she was currently stepping on his dick through his pants. He didn't know why this man was enjoying that, but Midnight seemed to be more concerned by whatever it was she was reading on her tablet. I don't want to know. Don't worry, Naruto, this isn't an orgy and I'm not having sex with any of these young men. When I'm doing office work, I don't like wearing those tights. My boys being able to see me like this as a reward for their hard work, prevents them from asking for bonuses. Midnight commented, no shame at all as she uncrossed her legs and switched them around. She hired these handsome young men for both their looks and their talents as workers. She didn't mind being seen naked, so they got the reward of seeing her naked in her office, while she got to waited on hand and foot by her hard-working boys. Did you bring me the documents? Boys, stop sending him those jealous looks, this is my son Naruto. Midnight noticed her boys sending Naruto looks of anger and jealousy for the closeness she seemed to hold for him. Master Naruto, please allow us to take your jacket for you. Whoa! Too close. Naruto had his school jacket forcefully removed, though the drastic change in attitude was more shocking. Naruto walked over to Midnight and took the documents she wanted out of his school bag, and handed them over to her. When you know I'm coming to bring you stuff, please put something on. Naruto complained to her. She shrugged. You see me naked all the time at home. Thank you, by the way, I need to grade these before tomorrow. I'm going to be coming home late, Naruto, so I can't train you tonight. I left some money on the table to order pizza, or whatever you want. Seems there is a new villain group forming, leaving some messages. Midnight spoke honestly with Naruto, and suddenly her obsessing over her tablet and the emails she was reading made sense. Let me guess, it's an all-male group, and they want you to subdue them non-violently, so they are young teens or something? Naruto didn't have much interest in villain groups, since he didn't really go out of his way to make friends with other villains. 7 males and 4 females according to what their body types indicate, they are calling themselves the Kurama 11. Midnight bit her thumb in annoyance as she looked at police reports that were being emails to her. She was one of the many heroes who were being sent this information, and she glanced up and saw Naruto seemed amused. The Kurama 11? Like a lot of other villains, it seems they were inspired by Kurama, but unlike all the others who got caught easily, these villains seem to have some talent. They use very excellent teamwork to take down heroes, but where Kurama acts alone and non-violently, this group is more violent, so they are being given a higher priority than Kurama. Midnight looked at Naruto's reaction, and saw him a little surprised. They've been in the news, I'm surprised you haven't heard of them. Midnight stated with some surprise of her own. They had been in the news for a few days now, she was surprised that he didn't seem to have at least heard of these guys by now. Then again, she had been really keeping him busy with training his quirk the best that she could. Mistress Midnight, should you dash? He's my son, and most of this is public knowledge. They use similar tactics to Kurama, but while Kurama's quirk is a mystery because he's skilled with hiding it, their quirks are all a mystery because no hero they have taken down seems to remember what happened. They might have somebody among them who can manipulate memories. Any ideas? Midnight knew that Naruto had a really good mind for traps and battle tactics. She had been testing him on that over the last few weeks to see how well he would do in the school festival coming up soon. She had value for her son's opinion on what he believed they could do, or at least how the villains seemed to be doing it. Naruto thought about it for a few moments, and he sat next to Midnight in her chair with her, and looked at the crime scene photos from the reports. He also looked at the injury pictures on each of the heroes. No head injuries, so one of them can manipulate memories for sure. Each hero's injuries seem best suited to taking them down when considering their quirks, so one of them is extremely intelligent and is cunning enough to make plans to take down each hero. They also had the battle prowess to take down the heroes, so skilled fighters. They also have a leader who keep the brains and bronze in check. Seeing some of these bruises, they have a male and female martial artist. Both of them use the same fighting style that target pressure points. Naruto started to analyze all of the heroes who had been defeated, though it was only a total of 7 at this point. He could see smaller bruises that were about the size of female hands, and ones that matched male hands, showing martial artists who used the same style had both a male and female user. Midnight hummed with a smile. Even if you don't become a hero, you could become a crime scene investigator. You have a very good eye for small details others would miss. Anything else? Midnight asked him, while her workers seemed a little awed by Naruto's good eye for detail. I don't have enough details, but with the accuracy that these few heroes had their pressure points attacked, might mean that the ones who did these injuries had quirks that let them see into the heroes' bodies more easily, or something that assists their martial arts. Sorry, I don't have much more than that. Naruto couldn't figure out much considering that the evidence provided such little information. Usually when he targeted a hero, he had a lot of information about them or he had seen them in the news enough to figure out their personality. He was also good at manipulating his opponent's emotions, and getting his opponents to act the way that he wanted them to act. While people who saw Kurama beat heroes would assume that Kurama was always one step ahead, the truth was that he was always manipulating his opponents into the positions he wanted them to be in. He was also good at doing this while making his own plans. Thank you, I'll look at the quirk registry for quirks that have an X-ray vision effect and those that can manipulate the mind. Seems a lot of villains are targeting Kurama, so better find a way to warn him. Must be hard being the top villain. Midnight shrugged to herself, feeling a little sorry for Kurama. Villains who idolized him were no doubt going to try and take the title of top villain from him by defeating him, the more famous that he got. These villains weren't the first Kurama fans to turn to villainy, they were just the first villains who followed Kurama who were good at being villains. By the way, these are all heroes Kurama beat, and they are sending a message to Kurama directly. The only parts of the heroes that are injuries are parts where he has stolen a piece of their costume. Naruto pointed out as he started to stand up. Seeing the pictures of the beaten, but not horribly injured thankfully, heroes he had noticed something odd. He had defeated all of these heroes, and from each of these heroes he had taken part of their costumes. Those defeated heroes who faced these new villains all had parts of their costumes destroyed violently, but only the parts he himself had stolen from them before. This was a direct message. Really? Midnight asked in surprise when she looked more closely at the photos. She blinked, before her eyes widened when she saw it after it had been pointed out to her. How did you notice that, Master Naruto? All of these heroes have appears in the news after Kurama beat them. It's a little weird, but based on that, they are going to keep targeting heroes Kurama has beaten to send a message to him and draw him out. Naruto started to walk out of the room with a yawn. He didn't care if others' villains were trying to catch his eye, it wasn't like any of the heroes were receiving fatal injuries or anything. As far as he was concerned, these were just fans of his who were trying to get him to notice them. Midnight became excited. Okay boys, you heard him. Let's make a list of every hero that Kurama has beaten, and a list of all of the parts of their costumes he stole. Now we can make a list of future attack targets, and oh, sorry Naruto, I'll be home even later than I thought. If you need me, you can call me whenever. Midnight spoke to him with a softer smile replacing her excited grin. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, since he had expected as much since she seemed to be really into her work. Just because Naruto was a villain himself, didn't mean he would got out of his way to protect other villains from getting captured. Anyway, he had a tournament to train for. This, Kurama 11, weren't important enough to warrant his attention. Chapter 29. So, Setsuna, what is it that you needed to talk with me about? Namuri asked as she sat a cup of tea in front of her student. She was in charge of the school's arts in general, so she was familiar with the girl as a student. She was a confident girl, a strong hero candidate, and she was extremely confident as a general rule. Many of her classmates would even call her the most provocative girls of her year. She was one of the strongest students of her year as well, with all of her stats having been ranked among the students at the class of A, other than her physical strength, which still ranked higher than nearly any female student and most of the male students of her year. She never asked the teachers for help. She never needed the help of the teachers either. She was Class B's best strongest student for a reason. Ah, you know, girl stuff. Setsuna shouted out awkwardly. Even though she was the one who was the person who came to Namuri, it would seem that she needed to have the answer dragged out of her. Okay, love issues then. Namuri deadpanned with a small smile. Does Naruto ever talk about me? Setsuna asked Namuri with a bashful smile, her sharp teeth grating together as she looked at Namuri. No, I can't say he does. Should he? Namuri gave her a suspicious eye. Ahahahaha, who knows dash. He might be my son, but he doesn't exactly tell me a ton about what he does. So please, be more direct with details here. Namuri was straight with Setsuna, since there wasn't much that she could do to help the girl if she refused to give her the details. Teachers weren't magical fix-its who could fix all of a student's problems. A student had to come and talk with them in order to get everything started. Setsuna ruffled the back of her hair and scrunched her face up. I was born 3 days after Naruto, and my mom was in the same hospital as his was, and when the accident happened that killed his parents, killed my dad and injured my mom. My mom died 3 days later, after giving birth to me. Setsuna stated, and Namuri raised an eyebrow. She didn't know any of this and Naruto didn't seem like he remembered much of Setsuna. You're an orphan, but I met your parents. Namuri had personally met both of Setsuna's parents during a parent-teacher conference. You're adopted. Namuri realized, since neither of her parents had the same quirk as she had, and they didn't look a thing like her except for her father having green hair, but that wasn't proof of bloodline. Yeah, same orphanage as Naruto actually, though Sasuke was adopted before me, and I got adopted when I was 7. Who is Sasuke? Namuri thought to herself when Setsuna unknowingly stated a name that wasn't a part of the story. Well, I used to write him letters as a kid, but I kind of stopped when my middle school friends made fun of me. I've wanted to be a hero ever since I was a kid. I felt really bad about abandoning him, so I wanted. Setsuna blushed a little, and puffed her cheeks out as she looked around at the floor. To talk with him. Namuri tried to help her out. Did he forget about me? I thought when I saw him as. Setsuna paused and looked at Namuri for a moment, and she shook her head. I thought when I saw him in the lunchroom one day, that he would come and talk to me, but he never did. Setsuna changed what she was saying halfway through, but kept the meaning the same. She also did it without changing the story or lying about what she was going to say. Well, your name is different, though it is weird he wouldn't recognize you. He remembers every kid from the orphanage by memory. Oh, well. I was 7. And it has been a while. Setsuna defended Naruto for apparently not remembering her. Naruto was like a big brother for everyone in the orphanage, but since we were so close in age, I just never saw him as a brother. Me then when Sasuke came around, those two were always getting into fights, and it was up to me to stop their fights. Then Sasuke got adopted, and then I was adopted. Setsuna stated with a smile on her face as she fondly remembered the couple of times she ended up getting punched in the face for getting between the two of them. Namuri giggled a little. Naruto has changed a lot then. Actually, I think he hasn't changed at all. He's always playing his pranks, and messing with people. Actually, Naruto is the same Naruto I knew as a kid. Setsuna laughed. When Naruto pranked everyone by knocking out the entire school and switching all of their clothes, it had been the funniest thing that she could have thought he would do. Of course, it was super embarrassing for her, that said, still funny though. Oh really? Namuri blinked in surprise. Yeah. Can you help me reconnect with him? Every time I try, I'm a little afraid at how he will react to me. Setsuna wasn't sure if she should talk to Naruto. You know, the first time you came here and asked for my help training your quirk, I figured you were hiding something, and tonight when you visited again while Naruto was out, I thought you might have a crush on him dash. Is it that obvious? Oh youth. Namuri coughed into her hand after quickly gushing, before she smiled and pat Setsuna on the head. You know, I support this relationship. Childhood friends are such a nice thing, so what is holding you back? Namuri asked Setsuna, who blinked in surprise. You're not going to tell me to back off your son? Setsuna was sure that Namuri wouldn't approve, so she didn't mention her crush before she thought that she had been found out. She knew that her parents wouldn't approve of her having a crush on Japan's most well-known villain. You know, you going all mama bear on me? Setsuna questioned her further, and Namiri just waved her off. You're young, Naruto is too. If you two end up together in the end, then I'm just happy that he found somebody to love. If you two get together, and you don't stay together, then that will break his heart, and heartbreak is a horrible thing, but it will be a growing experience for him. I don't see why I shouldn't support you too. Namiri explained her reasoning. Yeah, if Setsuna was an older girl, or some freak, then she would totally go mama bear on Setsuna to protect Naruto. This wasn't that case. Setsuna was a normal girl, with a normal crush, and falling in love or getting your heart broken were both just a part of being young. Also, she was a teacher, she couldn't allow herself to beat up one of her students over something like this. The door opened up. Hey, I'm back. Oh, Tokage, you're here again. Well, I've got pizza for dinner, I'm sure we'll have some if you want to stay for dinner. Naruto was a little confused why she was at the apartment a second time, but he wasn't against her being there. She did seem familiar to him for some reason, but he couldn't put a finger on it. It was weird, but he didn't know any girls named Setsuna Tokage, so it was weird that she seemed personally familiar to him. He stopped thinking about it though. Oh, it's no big deal, my parents are out on business anyway dash. Bonk. Then stay and eat pizza, I'm going to go take a shower, my run has left me sweaty. You can stay the night, a girl doesn't need to go out all alone to an empty house, hero in training or not. Tonight you can take my bed, and I'll take the couch. Naruto bonked Setsuna on the top of the head hard enough to knock her head forward. Namiri nearly busted a gut laughing when she saw how casually he walked by her and did that. But dash. When I'm out of the bath, you better be done eating and ready to take one yourself. My pajamas will be a bit big, but they should fit you just fine. Naruto yawned again, before he cursed under his breath. Stupid weather, these dry spells of no rain are going to be the death of me. Naruto hated the weather they were having, since it hadn't rained in a while and today had been a real scorcher. While his toad quirk allowed him more freedom in dry weather than the frog quirk, his body was trying to coat itself in fluid in order to stay moist. It was killing him to try and hold back his quirk the entire day to avoid his poison leaking out with the mucus that would cover his skin. He needed a bath just to get rid of the aches that were building up in his body because of that. Namiri just giggled when she saw how Naruto treated Setsuna. Well, you didn't need to hit me. Yeah, well just looking at you, I can tell you won't listen to me without a bonk on the head. I'm serious, you better be ready for a bath when I'm out. Naruto stated to her with a deadpan tone as he left the room. Namiri and Setsuna shared a look. They both started to laugh. Chapter 30. Geez, can't a guy just try to make a festival on time these days? He was running late, the sports festival would start for the most part without him there, but he needed to be there to compete in the first event if he were to qualify for the events that followed it. The best way to avoid being late? Being Kurama, and skipping traffic. Today is your last day of villainy Kurama. Wow, new guy on the force, can't really tell if this is a joke or not. Anyway, seems he can turn his body into chains. Naruto stated with a deadpan, under his breath as he dodged a dozen chains that tried to surround and restrain him. He could feel them before he saw them, making them useless as he jumped through the narrow spaces between the chains that attempted each attempt at capturing him. That, or this newbie wants to make a name for himself. Hey new guy, what is your hero name? Naruto asked as he grabbed onto the chain, and ran his finger along it. The man on the other end of the chain collapsed as the poison traveled through his chain, which was made of his flesh and blood, and went into his body. Guh. Seriously, not even worth a hero trophy, anyway, I've got to go. Naruto didn't bother collecting anything from the man, since he was mostly a no-name hero, more than likely a sidekick who was trying to score some hero points. Any hero who could catch the #1 villain would become a top hero for sure in society's eyes. -2 minutes later. Take my water spin. Naruto ducked as a spinning vortex of water shot towards him from the side, and he stopped traveling from car to car and landed on the road. Naruto saw a woman in a blue suit with yellow accents facing him, with one of her hands touching an exposed fire hydrant. It would seem that her quirk let her control water, but not create and produce it herself, making her quirk rather weak overall if her control was limited. The water vortex, like a boomerang, came back towards the source of water it came from, and Naruto gently stuck his finger in the water before the water reached the pro-hero and the poison inside of the water touched her skin. Nice quirk, but if you are required to touch water to control it, and it comes back to you, don't use it against a poisonous villain. Naruto sighed to himself in some annoyance as he lectured the hero about her horrible use of her quirk. She needed to make note on how he would just use her own quirk against her. He could still make it in time. -1 minute later. Seriously, today sucked. Okay, the fuck, I know I'm a sexy beast, but why am I being targeted by nothing but complete rookies, that or sidekicks? You are the third one in like 9 minutes I've been traveling. Naruto stated as he was chased down by a swarm of locusts. The hero he was facing had the power to transform his body into insects, and Naruto would have loved to extend his tongue and freak the guy out, but that would be a pretty big reveal. Naruto jumped on top of buildings and made his way across several city blocks with this rookie hero chasing him by flight. Naruto gripped his own forearms, and dug his fingernails into his skin hard enough to indent, but not enough to bleed. Super move, Poison Shower. With one smooth and lightning-fast movement, he separated his arms, and scattered the poison from his skin into the air behind him. The locust swarm was sprinkled with plenty of poison, and they started to move together as they took the form of a man in a costume that even looked like a locust. Naruto sighed in annoyance at showing off one of his super moves that he had spent so much time developing, and on a sidekick of all heroes. The poison shower had been his solution to using long-distance poison, and it made its premiere against a second-rate hero of all things. Your dash. Okay, halt the heroics for a second, I'm late and don't have time for it. Naruto stated with a wave of his hand as he looked at his watch. He still had a good bit of time before the first event. -5 minutes later. Are all the real pro heroes out or something? Naruto asked as he was surrounded by a group of sidekicks who were all in matching uniforms. Naruto had his arms crossed in annoyance as he tapped his foot. Around 20 sidekicks in total were around him, and it was annoying that he was going to have to take them all down. The news was going to have a field day, and he would love to make a show of their defeat, but he really didn't have time for it. The heroes froze completely when they heard a humming sound. Super move, Toxic Love Da. Naruto used his song very subtly as he hypnotized the sidekicks in the area into not moving their bodies, before he walked over to each one without breaking his humming, and touched them on the nose. They collapsed one by one, and Naruto stopped humming when he looked at all of the knocked-out heroes, who wouldn't remember hearing his singing voice. Naruto then proceeded to start to make his way back towards UA so that he could go about the sports festival like he planned. -15 minutes later. Ha 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 ha. Come on Kurama, let's see what is under that mask. I've almost figured you out. Mirko shouted loudly with excitement as she chased Naruto down. Naruto wasn't too angry about this one, since he knew how she moved, and even though she was faster than him, he would be able to avoid her attacks easily enough. At least I can keep moving, this won't mess with my time too much. Naruto thought as he dodged a kick from behind. He jumped and landed on the side of a building, before he launched himself off of it when she jumped at where he landed, and jumped after him. Mirko lost control of her body in midair and landed in Naruto's waiting arms. The fuck? How did you get me? You're supposed to kiss me. Don't have time, got a thing to go to, anyway, be careful where you touch. I put some of my poison on the building when I landed, knowing you would attack it and touch the poison. Naruto explained to her as he started to jump across buildings with her in his arms. Why the hell are so many sidekicks out today? Naruto asked her with an annoyance glance at the group of sidekicks that were already starting to show up. All the big-name pros are watching the sports festival today, to see who we can apprentice under us. I don't do that crap though, I hate teamwork. So they are leaving their sidekicks to take care of threats. Mirko explained with a roll of her eyes. She would never be catch dead letting her sidekick punch villains for her, not that she had any sidekicks other than the ones who did her paperwork for her. She hated paperwork more than teamwork, so she hired a sidekick to take care of all of it. Also, you're groping my tit. Yep. You're groping my tit. You're right, I am groping it, it's a nice tit, very firm and still very soft, not as soft as most boobs, but the firmness is a nice touch. Naruto explained to her as she sent him a deadpan stare for touching her breast, fondling her as he carried her. She wasn't even angry, she just wanted to point out what he was doing. Listen Bun Bun, I've seen you naked before, and here I thought you wanted to take a Kurama on a magic dick ride? Naruto asked her in a teasing voice. Mirko had foggy memories of something like that. How the hell did you erase my memories, and the other heroes who knew who you were? Poison, duh. I just changed my poison to make it target certain parts of your brain, erasing memories of what my real name is. Naruto lied expertly as he threw her up into the air. Hey! She was caught by two sidekicks who stopped chasing Naruto to catch her, and the sidekicks collapsed when the poison on Mirko touched them. Naruto grinned to himself, since he used Mirko as a weapon to poison others this time. Sorry Bun Bun, maybe next time you and I can spend some quality time, guess I owe you 2 kisses then. Naruto laughed at her as he gave her his parting taunts. -32 minutes later. 73 sidekicks. Pro heroes. Over the course of this one trip to UA's sports arena, he had been forced to take out 77 heroes in total who had tried to capture him. Today would for sure be known as Kurama's most active day as a villain for sure, if anyone were actually paying attention to that news instead of watching the nationally broadcasted sports festival. Naruto could feel his arm was a bit numb from overusing his own poison, so he would have to make sure not to use anymore until his resistance to his poison was restored to full, otherwise he would end up losing the sports festival for sure. Looks like I'm in the clear, better not get caught sneaking in. Naruto finished changing into his gym uniform in the bathroom, and he hid his villain clothes in the air conditioning vent, since he was in the bathroom at the moment. He had snuck in very easily, but the fact that hundreds of stronger pro heroes were on grounds was very bad for him if he were to be seen as Kurama. Naruto left the bathroom stall to see Kamui Woods walking in. "Good afternoon, student, hurry up." "Right, when I defeated Orochimaru, everyone he ate was released, and Kamui Woods was one of them. Bet MT Lady is happy about that." Naruto grinned to himself as he passed the wood user. Right, hundreds of people who had went missing from many countries, over the past hundreds of years, had all been introduced to modern-day society again. Many had been returned to their home countries, and were placed into recovery units to help them deal with the massive mental trauma they went through. Being stuck in a literal living hell had to be tough for anyway. Even Kamui Woods had only started active duty 2 days ago. "I'm already late, what is the harm of a few more minutes?" Naruto spoke in a lazy tone. The first event, a race around the stadium, starts in 3 minutes. -2 minutes 21 seconds later. Where is he? Momo thought as she looked at the other students who were all at the starting line for the running course that was waiting for them. Since Naruto wouldn't be able to use his usual Kurama tactics, this would be a great time for her to pull a win over on him. She would expose him, or she would try to, but today was the sports festival. She wanted to have fun and grow stronger. Her focus wasn't on Naruto, but to say she didn't want to beat him was a completely different story. She wanted to beat Naruto as Naruto, to give herself the proof that she needed that she had a chance of exposing him. No, she wanted to beat him, because he was her rival. As simple as that. "Naruto better show up, we promised each other a rematch," Mina stated with a worried look of her own. She still felt sorry about how she pretty much bullied a normal dude into a fight, and kicked his butt, but after more than a month of training Naruto had to be stronger now. She needed this rematch to help Naruto and her own pride, since he lost to a girl in one hit, and she beat up a normal guy for no reason. Setsuna several meters away looked at her with a confused look. Why is the pink one concerned about Naruto? Anyway, where is he? There he is. Setsuna thought with a sigh of relief when she saw Naruto sneaking into the students, showing that he was very late for the opening ceremony, as in he literally missed the entire thing. Setsuna saw several girls take notice of Naruto, and her eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Wait, the genius girl from Class A and the pink one, both of them seem relieved. Do I have rivals? Setsuna really hoped that she didn't have any love rivals. Wow, did her Naruto, the big dork she knew since she was a kid, manage to get 2 beautiful girls to show interest in him? Wait, wasn't Mirko also super thirsty for Kurama, his alter ego? Wait, didn't he literally have a massive fangirl club that consisted of over 150,000 members all over the country, with those numbers still growing? Not to mention that Kurama was the #1 most popular villain, with general population approval ratings matching those of members of the top 10 themselves? That wasn't great for her. It meant that she really needed to work hard if she wanted to attract his attention to her. She would save her emotional baggage for later. The race was about to start.